achieve. What I think he is doing by saying this is diverting attention from other issues, and he is insisting that he not be treated as a lame duck, that people shouldn't write him off, start talking about his successor. He's saying, I don't know, maybe I'll be here.
Thank you for listening to the interview from the BBC World Service. If you enjoyed today's programme, you can listen to the interview wherever you get your BBC podcasts. And watch out for Trump the First 100 Days on BBC News. Until the next time, bye for now.
From the BBC, that was the interview. I'm Saroja Coelho. CBC News is next.
Good morning, Manitoba, and hello, Canada. It is the day after the federal election in this country, and we are out live in Winnipeg at another community studio. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio, our special post-election coverage this morning. We're at the Salisbury House at 759 Pembina Highway at the corner of Pembina and Stafford. We've got a packed show for you after a busy night. In fact, Elections Canada has paused the counting in some of the tightest races in the country. One of those is here in Manitoba. Let's say good morning to our team, and then we're going to hear from Heather Wells about that race that is not yet called. Good morning to Donna Carrero, one of our producers on site here, who's been producing our election specials. Good morning to Corey Funk, who's teching the show and is on site with us here, is also our show director and will be on the air covering the commute. Good morning to Abby Adeyemi, who's behind the controls back at CBC. And good morning to Brad Lillies, who's switching the show this morning on YouTube. And hello to you. You're with CBC. I'm Marcy Marcusa, 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. So 2 minutes to 6, let's get the lay of the land for what happened here in Manitoba last night. Here's Heather Wells with our headlines.
Good morning. Well, 2 Winnipeg area seats changed hands last night as both the Liberal and Conservative parties increased their share of the popular vote in the federal election in the newly renamed riding of Winnipeg West.
I'm back.
Liberal Doug Eyolfson defeating Conservative Marty Morantz. The Conservatives also won a Winnipeg area seat, Colin Reynolds defeating NDP incumbent Leela Dance in Elmwood, Transcona. Now, as Marcy mentioned, one Winnipeg area riding still too close to call, Kildona St. Paul, where Conservative Raquel Dancho is leading Liberal Thomas Nakins by more than 1,000 votes. We're going to check out some new faces going to Ottawa from rural Manitoba as well. All of that coming up in our next local news at 6:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
We have so much to get through this morning. So I can tell you our partisan panel is going to be here. We're going to ask them for their take on last night. We also are going to have some analysis from Chris Adams through the morning about what he sees overall in the campaign. And then we're going to hear from the people last night that won seats and those that lost seats. So we're going to take you over to meet a new face in St. Boniface, St. Vital. Jeanette Levac takes over from Liberal Dan Vandal. Dan Vandal's on our panel, so we're also going to talk to him. It's his first day not sitting as an MP this morning and as a politician for a very long time. We also are going to hear more from people all across Manitoba. Stay with us.
Today on Q with Tom Power.
It's one of the great Canadian comebacks. 10 years ago, Angeli was at the height of her fame, hit records, big shows, but then she had to step back. Angeli will tell you how she recentered herself, found a new sound, and found the right kind of success.
And now I'm singing,
That's coming up on Q, followed by Commotion with Elamine Abdel-Mahmoud on CBC Radio 1, the CBC Listen app, and everywhere you get your podcast.
Good morning, I'm Marcia Young at the CBC Broadcast Centre.
And I'm John Northcott. In York Minster Park and Toronto St. Paul's, a riding that turned red again in this historic federal election.
This is a special edition of World Report. Mark Carney will be Canada's next Prime Minister, and he could be leading a minority government. There are more than 24 ridings that have not yet been called. But one thing is clear, it has been decades since Canada last looked like this.
No matter where you live, no matter what language you speak, no matter how you voted, I will always do my best to represent everyone who calls Canada home.
And as I said, while we will do our constitutional duty of holding government to account and proposing better alternatives, we will always put Canada first.
It is rare for two parties to control so much of Parliament. The Liberals and Conservatives each have more than 40% of the popular vote. It's also rare for the leaders of one of those parties to lose their seat. Pierre Poilievre was defeated in his home riding of Ottawa-Carleton. Jagmeet Singh lost his seat too, and his new Democratic Party is projected to lose official party status.
I've been informed a party leader that I'll be stepping down as party leader as soon as an interim leader can be appointed.
The Green Party right now holds just one seat, Elizabeth May's riding in BC. It's unclear if it will be able to pick up a second in Ontario's Kitchener Centre riding. That race is still too close to call. For more now, let's go to Janice McGregor in our Parliamentary Bureau. And Janice, Mark Carney has a difficult job ahead, and it looks as if he will have to do it with a minority government. What kind of challenges will that present?
Marcia, this result is a dramatic consolidation of the next parliament into two-party politics. The Liberals did win the popular vote. That is something they did not accomplish in the last two elections, and that adds to the credibility of Mark Carney's win here. But it is not at all clear that this minority parliament is going to be easy to navigate at a time when a budget and consequential legislation may be required urgently. Unless more ridings flip as the final ballots are counted today, the Liberals are going to need perhaps 5 new Democrat or Green MPs to help them pass anything they want to do. The Bloc is going to hold a swing vote on House committees, requiring constant negotiations there too. In looking ahead to the challenge of dealing with Donald Trump's threats, Carney called for cooperation.
United, we have built one nation in harsh conditions despite a sometimes hostile neighbor. We are supporting our friends and neighbors in the crosshairs of President Trump.
When Justin Trudeau resigned, there was a danger that his successor could have been the shortest serving prime minister in history. With this win, Mark Carney will not be the answer to that trivia question.
Janice, let's talk about Pierre Poilievre's night.
Yeah, for an opposition leader who'd let what had been a commanding lead in public opinion polls slip from his party's grasp and lost his seat in the House of Commons in the process. A resignation wouldn't have been out of the question last night, but instead, Pierre Poilievre declared victory.
We have much to celebrate tonight. We've gained well over 20 seats. We got the highest share of vote our party has received since 1988.
That part of his speech was perhaps an opening bid to keep his job atop a party that appears fraught with serious infighting. If he is going to carry on in the short term, he's going to have to figure out how to do that without being a leading voice in the House of Commons. Another Conservative that did win a seat last night is going to have to step down and eventually let him run again in a by-election.
Thank you, Janice.
You're welcome.
The CBC's Janice McGregor reporting from Ottawa.
Carney campaigned on needing a strong mandate to face U.S. President Donald Trump, and he's already laid out parts of his plan to make Canada's economy more resilient. Our senior business correspondent, Peter Armstrong, is in studio. Peter, Carney, a former Bank of Canada governor experienced in running G7 economies. What do you expect to see happen with him as Prime Minister?
You know, you make the interesting point that he campaigned as that experienced, calm, cool hand in a crisis. So in a lot of ways, the hard part's done. He won the election. But now all of the work that lies ahead of him of actually doing the work, of actually implementing the agenda and actually trying to find ways to grow the economy. The one thing we need to see, not just for the trade war with the United States, but for the work of trying to convince all the people that didn't vote for the Liberals that they are in fact going to work for them. The one antidote to both of those problems is finding a way to grow the economy. There are piles of policy options. You and I have talked about some of those during this campaign. He's got to pick some, he's got to prioritize them, and then he's got to do the work to see them through. That, I think, will be a much bigger test than simply winning this election.
Peter, Canadians are still really struggling with affordability. How is Carney planning to provide some relief?
I think you ask one of the most important questions, but also one of the trickiest. The problem with affordability has been there and has been growing for years. And what you can do in the midst of a trade war where tariffs are going to be driving up costs, where uncertainty is going to be driving down employment, is one of those really big, very important questions that is not going to wait for some answer from Parliament. It's going to need work right out of the gates.
Peter Armstrong in Toronto. Thank you, Peter.
You bet.
John, one of the big storylines of this election is how poorly the NDP performed in the polls. The party is currently leading or elected in just 7 seats, not enough to maintain official party status or for Jagmeet Singh to stay on as leader. David Thurton has more.
Honestly, I got to avoid making eye contact with certain people because then it's going to get too emotional up here. So,
this was a challenging night for Jagmeet Singh, and you can see it in his face. Singh conceded the loss of his Burnaby Central seat. Coupled with the party's poor showing, it was impossible for him to stay on.
Tonight, I've been informed our party leader that I'll be stepping down as party leader as soon as an interim leader can be appointed.
Singh thanked his family, and he gave a shout-out to his staff, some of whom will be losing jobs because the party doesn't seem to be on track to maintain party status. The results are a major blow for New Democrats. The last time they performed this badly was back in the 1990s.
Obviously, I'm disappointed that we could not win more seats, but I'm not disappointed in our movement. I'm hopeful for our party. I know that we will always choose hope over fear and optimism over despair and unity over hate.
Like in previous elections, New Democrats now turn their attention to figuring out what went wrong, but this time they are searching for an interim leader to guide a very small NDP caucus. David Thurton, CBC News, Burnaby.
If this remains a minority government, the Bloc Québécois could hold the balance of power. So although it has lost about 10 seats in total, the party is celebrating. Rafi Bouchikanian has more.
Despite loyal Bloc Québécois supporters cheering for leader Yves-François Blanchet, on paper, Monday was not a good night for the Bloc. Many party stalwarts like parliamentary leader Alain Terrien will not be returning to Ottawa. However, even with fewer MPs than they had before the election, the suspense over how the Liberals end up doing is giving them hope. Blanchet says he will be able to push issues that matter to Quebecers to the forefront.
Et nous imposerons incontestablement.
Like the province's uniquely francophone nature, which Blanchet says he will impose in Parliament. Then there is protection for supply management in trade negotiations with the U.S., a key issue for dairy farmers, something the Bloc tried to pass legislation on before the election and is promising to do again. Blanchet says he'll work with Ottawa on issues where he sees eye to eye, but says his support should not be taken for granted. Rafi Bouchikanian, CBC News, Montreal.
Recapping the results from Canada's federal election, Mark Carney will be the next Prime Minister. Right now, his Liberals are leading in or projected to win 168 seats. That is minority territory.
But in Quebec, Newfoundland, Ontario, and British Columbia, there are still more than 24 ridings that are still too close to call. Elections Canada says it plans to resume counting ballots in those ridings at 9:30 Eastern Time. Pierre Poilievre lost his home riding of Ottawa-Carleton, but has vowed to keep fighting on behalf of Conservatives. NDP leader Jagmeet Singh says he will resign as party leader.
And for up-to-the-minute election developments, stay tuned right here to CBC Radio or on the CBC Listen app.
Or follow along on cbcnews.ca. I'm John Northcott.
And I'm Marcia Young. This is CBC News.
This was a hard night for us as the NDP. But here's the thing. We were in the fight of our life in Winnipeg Centre. And you know why we won? We won because we believe in human rights at the centre in Winnipeg Centre.
Good morning, Manitoba. I'm Marcy Marcusa. That is Leah Gazan. We're going to hear more from her this hour. She is the only NDP standing in Manitoba this morning from Winnipeg Centre. We are the morning after the election. We're going to get the view about what our province looks like after the vote. Thanks for joining us for a special post-election special here as we follow the results after Canada's 45th general election, and it was a historic one. As you've been hearing on World Report, the emergence of a two-horse race between the Liberals, the Conservatives, and yes, the collapse of the NDP, not an official party this morning, and some rather significant incumbent losses, including here in Manitoba. So we're broadcasting from the Salisbury House at 759 Pembina Highway. We're in the riding of Winnipeg South Centre to be in community with you, the voters. If you want to join us here, we would love to see you. And later this morning, we are going to talk to Ben Carr. He is the Liberal MP who held his seat here in Winnipeg South Centre last night. This morning, the landscape looking different in Manitoba. The Liberals have gained 2. The NDP have lost 2. The Conservatives are down 1. And we are still actually awaiting to see if they could be down 2 or whether they'll land at down 1, because they're still looking at a final count in Kildonan and St. Paul. Heather Wells, lots to get through. Where do you want to start this morning with headlines?
Yes, it is still too close to call. As we've been hearing on World Report, a number of seats still at play after yesterday's federal election. Among those is Kildonan and St. Paul, where Conservative Raquel Dancho is leading Thomas Nakins by more than 1,000 votes. 2 Winnipeg area seats did change hands last night. In the newly renamed riding of Winnipeg West, Liberal Doug Eyolfson defeated Conservative Marty Morantz. The Conservatives won a Winnipeg area seat, Colin Reynolds defeating NDP incumbent Leela Dance in Elmwood, Transcona. And Northern Manitoba is going to see a new face representing them in Ottawa. Liberal Rebecca Chartrand won the riding of Churchill, Kiiwetinoong-Aski, defeating the NDP's Nikki Ashton, who had represented that area since 2008. So I'll be back with more Manitoba results coming up at 6:30.
Thanks, Heather.
You're welcome.
Manitobans writing in already with a reaction to a Liberal government again in Ottawa. So happy I could cry, relieved, horrible night, and it came at the expense of the NDP. Those are also quotes from listeners that were writing to us overnight once CBC made the call. So we're going to get through your reaction. We're going to talk about what comes next as well. Thanks for joining us on our post-election special. So here out the window at Sal's, it is looking bright and clear and the promise of a warmer day, but it's chilly to start. We have to go to Abby Adiemi to find out what our actual temperatures are right now. Good morning, Abby. Welcome back.
Good morning, Marcy. Thank you. Yeah, we're starting chilly, though. We're looking at a sunny and mild day ahead with a mix of sun and clouds in the northern parts and then more like a sunny day down south. We're going to see temperatures down south climb to the teens today. Right now in Winnipeg, we are at -5. It's chilly outside. As mentioned, the day looks sunny and mild across Winnipeg and surrounding areas. As we move into the afternoon, we'll feel some light breeze from the south, which will develop, and then we'll head to a high of 12 degrees. And that's what we're going to see for most of the regions. But the rest of the south, we're seeing temperatures hover around -8 at this time, and up north we're seeing -10, -4, and -19 in Churchill, Thompson, and Flin Flon.
All right, thanks very much, Abby.
Thank you.
Corey Funk's here on location at Sal's with me. Hi, Corey.
Hello. Yes, very quiet commute overall. Haven't heard of any major issues yet, but you can call me. Just a number to call, 204-788-3093.
Well, the first hour of our show is really going to sink into some of these results. And then I want to mention we've got some pretty great analysis coming up. So our partisan panel is going to be here live at Sal's to look through what happened in Manitoba last night. So that's in the second hour of the show. And then we also have some of the MPs that were elected and re-elected last night. So Ben Carr actually will join us live later. Doug Eyolfson, who was elected last night in Winnipeg West. That's one of the change ridings in Manitoba. He will also be joining us live a little bit later in the show. So it really was quite a night. And when you look at the federal level, 2 party leaders losing their seats last night, Pierre Poilievre and Jagmeet Singh. We have a lot to talk about. But let's start here at home and let's get through some of these races. So just a few months ago, Winnipeg Centre was the safest orange seat in Manitoba. But then the NDP collapsed in the polls. Last night, as mentioned, NDP leader Jagmeet Singh did lose his seat in Burnaby Central, but Winnipeg Centre incumbent Leah Gazan held on. She is an island of orange this morning in our province. This is Gazan last night speaking to CBC's Josh Crabb and other reporters after her win.
What do you think the difference was for the NDP in this election, just in terms of the number of seats that the Liberals were able to pick up?
Well, I think certainly what's happening down south impacted the vote. I think a real anti-Pierre Poilievre sentiment certainly impacted things. And, I think a lot of people voted out of fear, and I understand that. Going forward, however, we need to work to rebuild the NDP. I'm confident we can do that. This is not the only time we've been down, and we'll get back up again and fight for people across Canada.
What do you think resonated about your message to voters, just given that sentiment of what you just mentioned, the anti-conservative, anti-Trump sentiment that you talked about? What resonated, do you think, with your campaign?
Well, we ran a really positive campaign. We just talked about keeping community at the center in Winnipeg Centre. All the things that the Liberals have pushed to the wayside, getting rid of the Minister for Gender Equality, Disability, Labour, Diversity and Equity, seniors. Those things matter in Winnipeg Centre. Like, basically, he shut out a place in government for folks in our communities that require attention. I'm going to hold the Liberal government to account.
What are some key issues you hope to address now that you're re-elected?
Well, I can tell you, certainly nothing has changed. Certainly we have a housing crisis in Winnipeg Centre. That has been a primary focus. And keeping, health and wellness, mental health and addiction, housing, making sure that our organizations have proper funding, and finding a way to go after many of the slum landlords that are taking over our vibrant community of Winnipeg Centre. I had really, really meaningful, deep conversations with people at the door, and I have to tell you, we have a community that is mobilizing, that will push back. We are the home of the Winnipeg strike. We are the home of OAS, and we are going to bring our strong history and our strong voice to Ottawa.
If the NDP doesn't get official party status, the 12 seats needed, what does that look like going back to Ottawa for you?
Well, what it looks like is I know how to work with our community to break through the noise to get things done in Winnipeg Centre. Let's not forget, as fourth party, we had record investments in Winnipeg Centre, even with fourth party status. So I'm looking forward to continuing on the fight, to getting resources in our community, and I'm honored that the people of Winnipeg Centre believed in me to send me back to Ottawa. I think we have a fight here in Canada. Mark Carney got elected. The first thing he did was get rid of the Minister for Women and Gender Equality, Labour, Seniors, Disability, Diversity and Equity. These things matter. This matters to the people, certainly of Winnipeg Centre and around the country, and I'm ready to go back to Ottawa and hold this government to account. I'm only focused on tonight. Certainly we have to take some time and reflect on how we need to rebuild as a party. My focus has always been Winnipeg Centre, the beautiful people in my community that I can't even tell you how much I love this community. I am so proud of our community. That's my focus tonight and my only focus.
That was NDP incumbent Leah Gazan speaking to CBC's Josh Crabb and other reporters after her win last night in Winnipeg Centre. She did defeat Liberal candidate Rahul Walia with just over 1,000 votes. Now, at the time of that conversation, you could hear that there was a question about the NDP and whether or not they would achieve official party status federally. They did not, and their leader, Jagmeet Singh, lost his seat. Leah Gazan remains now the only NDP MP in Manitoba. You're listening to a live edition of Information Radio. We are at the Sal's at Stafford and Pembina. Thank you so much for joining us this morning on the show on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app or on YouTube. At 6:20, let's get to some more results. And this one was one we were watching, and in fact, it did change. For the last 17 years, Manitoba's northernmost riding has been an NDP stronghold, but that did change last night. So Churchill Keewatin-Nagasaki is now represented by Liberal Rebecca Chartrand. She unseated NDP incumbent Nikki Ashton, who has held that seat since 2008. This was a rematch. They came very close many years ago, but last night Chartrand won. She ran, and as I mentioned, she'd lost in the riding a decade ago. She says this win is particularly sweet. She spoke with CBC's Sunuta Rinawakwe shortly after her win.
Well, tell me how you feel. How does it feel? You did it.
Oh my God, it just feels, I'm still
so excited and surreal, and we were looking for like a $13,000 votes. We were looking at the 2015 election, but yeah, we won and we did it, and we're just all so excited right now.
Why do you think people wanted to switch? You know, the NDP has held this for 17 years. Why Liberal now in this riding?
I think people wanted a change. I think they, especially because there's almost nearly 80% Indigenous people in this riding, I think our people are more engaged with, federal and provincial politics, and they're understanding what a vote means, and especially now the stakes have been too high. We've seen huge investments into our communities from this Liberal government. And what we heard at the door is there hasn't been a government that has worked more closely with Indigenous people, and that was under Trudeau. And people are finally coming to realize that, and they recognize that Mark Carney is the right person for the position to keep things moving in the right direction in terms of reconciliation. But people also want to see huge economic development in this riding, and this is, the time is right for that, especially under Mark Carney, who's focused on the economy. Like, this riding needs to be a part of that equation.
Okay, and one last thing before I let you go. I know you don't live here yet. Do you plan on moving here soon?
Yeah, there's 67 communities, so lots to choose from, and we're definitely going back to many of the communities. That's a priority for us.
Right, but like, I know you live in Winnipeg. Are you planning on moving out here, like to Thompson?
We're basically looking at that right now. Definitely going to be in Thompson a lot more. We envision having an office there. But in terms of where we move, I mean, the riding has huge populations throughout. We've had invitations to, come to the Island Lakes area or to different parts of the riding and to help just be a part of that community. So we have a lot of invitations in terms of where we could move. And we just feel so, like, from the bottom of our heart, so welcomed and embraced by so many community members who actually have, adopted. There's been some adoptions that have happened along the way with people just, looking at me as their niece or things like that. And that makes all the difference, because it's more than a job. It's about building community. It's about connecting with people and rebuilding like strong nations again, and doing it in the way that we envisioned at the signing of the treaties, which was mutual benefit, mutual obligation. And that starts at the base with building relationships with everybody across the riding in the best way that we know how.
Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to mention?
I just want to thank Nikki Ashton for her 17 years of service. It hasn't gone unnoticed, and I hope that, there's some way that we can work together to keep moving, this agenda forward, and one that she says is very important to her. So I've extended that offer to her, and we all need to work together to move things along in this riding.
So that's Liberal Rebecca Chartrand, the new MP for Churchill, Kiiwetinoong, Aski, thanking Nikki Ashton for her service. 17 years, as mentioned, as Ashton had been the incumbent. She was defeated last night by just over 2,700 votes. You're listening to a live post-election day special here on CBC Manitoba's Information Radio. I'm Marcy Marcusa with our team here at the Sal's at Taylor and Pembina, where I know our producer's already talking to early morning voters here. So we'll get them on air as they choose to join us. Sunny and a high of 12 in Winnipeg. Right now it's clear and -5, and your morning drive should be good. Well, next on the show, let's go to a long-time incumbent. Just like Ashton was a long-time incumbent, except this incumbent won last night. We're turning to Winnipeg North. Liberal incumbent Kevin Lamoureux has held that seat since 2010, and that seat will continue to be his. At his campaign celebration last night, he was introduced by his daughter, provincial MLA Cindy Lamoureux, the lone Manitoba Liberal in Manitoba.
Without further ado, allow for me to reintroduce, you all know him already, but our new re-elected MP for Winnipeg North.
The first thing that comes to my mind is to say thank you to each and every one of you for making it happen. People say, well, it's this whole Lamoureux team thing. And I'll tell you what it real boils down to is individuals that truly care about the community, talking to other community people. That is the actual secret. Work hard, be there for your constituents. That's what makes the difference. And you are also wonderful in terms of everything that you do in order to make this campaign a success. And I say thank you, thank you, thank you very much. Who would have thought 3 months ago that we would be going back into government? I tell you how things change so very, very quickly. We are now going to be back in government for tomorrow and days, weeks, and hopefully years to come with Mark Carney as Prime Minister of Canada. Earlier I was asked, what are going to be the priorities? What is going to be important for us going forward? We know Donald Trump is not a friend. We know that. And we know that we have in Mark Carney an individual that can protect Canada's interest, and we have a great group of members of Parliament that's going to be there serving their constituents and protecting the jobs and the industries that are so very important to all of us. And that is something in which we can participate in firsthand because Winnipeg North delivered for the Liberal Party of Canada, and we will be a stronger government as a direct result. So I want you to pat yourselves on the back for a job well done. I got to meet thousands of residents of the Winnipeg North, and my first thank you should have been actually to the people of Winnipeg North. Let's give them a round of applause for continuing to support us. And just before I conclude, I did also want, at the very end of the campaign, we're all familiar with what had taken place in Vancouver. It was a horrific accident. And I can tell you, not accident, it was a horrific crime. And over the coming days and the weeks, we'll get a better understanding of it. But it is an issue in which I will stay on top of, because I know it affects real people here in Winnipeg North and, in fact, across Canada. On a other and final note, I want to just recognize that at the end of the day, the work that all of us did combined really does matter. Canada is the best country in the world to call home. And I know that you care about Canada as I care about Canada. And I want you to know that I'm up for the battle. I have the experience. I have the people around me that can ensure that we have the supports that are necessary to be there in a powerful way, representing the Winnipeg North as a part of a government of Canada.
Liberal candidate incumbent Kevin Lamoureux speaking to reporters. He won again last night in Winnipeg North. He's held that seat since 2010. He defeated Conservative candidate Rachel Punzalan by more than 7,000 votes. And on the way in, if that sounded confusing, his daughter introduced him. She is the lone Manitoba Liberal provincially in this province. Of course, Kevin Lamoureux has more company for the federal Liberals after last night because they gained 2. Well, let's talk about a riding that's too close to call. It's the only one in Manitoba where they've paused. Well, they paused counting across the country, but it's the only riding in Manitoba affected by this. We're talking Kildonan and St. Paul, where right now Conservative Raquel Dancho is ahead, and there's 207 of 208 polls reporting she's ahead by some 1,500 votes over Tom Nakins, who's the Liberal candidate there. Matthew McMillan just sat down with me here at the Sal's at Pembina and Stafford. He voted actually last night. And how did you vote in Kildonan and St. Paul?
I voted Liberal.
You did?
Yes.
Okay, so why did you vote to support Liberals last night?
I have a little bit of a dog in this fight. I work for Canada Post, so we were hoping to have a Liberal government to help with our upcoming negotiations again in May, and we figured we would be a little bit better off with the Liberal candidate than over the Conservative candidate. And my wife works for CRA, so it's the same thing. She's up for contract stuff, so we want a little bit more stability, I guess you would say.
So that's the reason for your vote.
Yeah.
What's your reaction to the overall result last night? The Liberals, of course, we're still waiting for your riding, but the Liberals have won. We're still waiting to see if that will be a majority. Right now it's a minority. They're 4 seats away from a majority. So what are your thoughts?
Not to be unexpected. I think that the Canadians want more stability with their leadership, and Carney was a little bit more stable to go deal with Trump. I mean, that's the big thing on everybody's mind was the tariffs and whatnot. And Carney just kind of gave that more of a stability and more of a united approach than, politics against each other kind of thing. So
we will let you get back to your coffee. Thanks for your thoughts.
Thank you.
The first Manitoba voter live on the air with us at Sal's. There will be more. That's Matthew McMillan. Let's get now to your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. It is a chilly start to Tuesday, -5 right now in Winnipeg. You might even need some mitts. But we will warm up, not quite getting to seasonal, but it'll be sunny today with a high of 12. And Mark Carney will stay on as Canada's Prime Minister.
Who's ready to build Canada strong?
CBC News Decision Desk projecting the Liberal Party forming the next government. However, it is not yet clear if it's going to be a majority or a minority. In a speech last night, Carney vowing to stand up for Canada in the trade war with the U.S.
When I sit down with President Trump, it will be to discuss the future economic and security relationship between two sovereign nations.
Conservative Pierre Poilievre conceded defeat last night during a speech at his Ottawa headquarters.
Canadians have opted for a razor-thin minority government, a virtual tie in the vote count. So I would like to congratulate Prime Minister Carney on leading this minority government. We'll have plenty of opportunity to debate and disagree. But tonight we come together as Canadians. We will do our job. Yes, we will do our job to hold the government to account.
Poilievre says he plans to stay on as Conservative leader, although CBC News projects that Poilievre will lose his seat. The NDP, meanwhile, leading in or projected to win just 7 seats. The NDP needs 12 to maintain official party status. Party leader Jagmeet Singh lost his own seat in BC's Burnaby Central and says it is time to look for his replacement.
I've been informed our party leader that I'll be stepping down as party leader as soon as an interim leader can be appointed.
The last time the NDP lost official party status was in 1993. Green Party co-leader Elizabeth May won her seat in BC. Well, 2 Winnipeg area seats changed hands last night, both the Liberals and Conservative parties increasing their share of the popular vote. CBC's Bartley Kivitz tells us about changes to the political map.
I'm back.
Applause at the Holiday Inn West on Portage Avenue for Liberal Doug Eyolfson, who is returning to Ottawa after a hiatus as a Liberal MP. In the newly renamed riding of Winnipeg West, Eyolfson defeated Conservative Marty Morantz, the man who defeated Eyolfson in 2019.
I would like to thank Marty Morantz for his work representing us for the last 6 years. Marty, you worked hard for us through challenging times, and we thank you.
The Conservatives also won a Winnipeg area seat. Conservative Colin Reynolds defeated NDP incumbent Leela Dance in Elmwood-Transcona. She only served as an MP for 7 months.
I feel so grateful for everybody that I got to meet on this journey.
The NDP's Nikki Ashton also lost Churchill-Kiiwetinoong-Aski to the Liberal Rebecca Chartrand. This left the New Democrats with 1 Manitoba seat, Winnipeg Centre. The Liberals have 6 seats in this province, and the Conservatives have at least 6 as well. Bartley Kivitz, CBC News, Winnipeg.
To Western Manitoba.
Couldn't do this without you. I know that, and I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Grant Jackson, newly elected Conservative MP in Brandon-Souris. The former MLA secured about 62% of the votes in the riding. He says his top priority is expanding Brandon's municipal airport. Jackson wants to see passenger planes heading east.
We need to be advocating and working as a whole-of-Westman approach to make sure that facility gets the upgrades it needs so that bigger planes can land here safely and ensure we have connectivity to Eastern Canada and the rest of the world.
And a massive upset in northern Manitoba last night. After almost 17 years of holding the seat in Churchill-Kiiwetinoong-Aski, the NDP's Nikki Ashton lost to Liberal Rebecca Chartrand. Chartrand says she is focused on building the economy in the north.
People are finally coming to realize that, and they recognize that Mark Carney is the right person for the position to keep things moving in the right direction in terms of reconciliation. But people also want to see huge economic development in this riding.
Chartrand, who is from northern Manitoba but currently lives in Winnipeg, says she is considering moving back to the riding. You can find more news updated throughout the day and the latest results. Just head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Whew, Heather, I'll tell you, between the Jets playoffs and the election, everyone's just going to be tired.
Some tense watching, right? Yes.
Yeah, there's been a lot of late nights waiting for results for various reasons. So I can't wait to see what voter turnout was, just given what those advance polls were.
We're working on getting that for you. We'll get that number.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
Quick look at the weather now with Abby Adiyemi.
A chilly start, but down south we're looking at a mix of sunshine and clouds, and we'll see some rain showers sometime later in the day. We're looking at highs between 12 and 14 degrees, though it's going to get breezy. And then up north we're going to see temperatures get to 4 and 9 degrees, and then Churchill remains at minus 18 and cold.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Corey Funk, the commute this morning, it looks beautiful out the
Gorgeous
big
outside.
window itself.
Exactly. We could see the sun setting reflect off the old hydro building over there, just off just not far from Stafford.
Lots of
here.
sunshine today.
Beautiful day. Overall, also very beautiful commute so far. Haven't heard of any major issues, but if you see something going on out there, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number 204-788-3093.
All right, thanks, Corey.
Thank you.
We are at the Salisbury House at Pembina at Stafford. If you want to come join us for our post-election special, I'm Marcy Marcusa with our team at Information Radio on CBC. Well, it is time for Crystalie Ramlakan to join us with business news today. Good morning, Crystalie.
Hey, good morning, Marcy.
So I know you just are going to share one story with us, and we're grateful. Thank you. You're making the report a little shorter for all the busy election coverage we have, but this is a big story because you have a latest on a deal on auto tariffs.
Yeah, so U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick has confirmed a deal has been reached with automakers to ease tariffs. So it's another potential policy reversal that could grant a major reprieve for the industry. So the Wall Street Journal is reporting that President Trump is set to announce a new tariff structure for cars that avoids stacking them on top of other tariffs already in place. So currently there is a 25% tariff on almost all imported cars, as well as 25% tariffs on steel and aluminum, of course, two metals heavily used in cars. So a White House official has told Reuters that the deal will be made official today when Trump is scheduled to travel to Michigan, the heart of the American automobile industry. So the industry has been bracing for tariffs, which could upend the market. And of course, these tariffs have been affecting Canadian auto manufacturers. And experts say tariffs could raise the cost of cars by thousands of dollars and reduce supply. And the administration, is also planning to put tariffs on auto parts as soon as Saturday that could raise prices even higher. So the auto industry has been lobbying for relief from these levies, saying that the import taxes will have a big impact on finances and supply chains. So, maybe with this announcement, there may be a little bit of relief, but it doesn't really seem like tariffs are going away quite yet.
All right. How are the numbers looking this morning, Crystalie?
So in Europe, stocks are rising. Germany is up, the UK is up, France is down. In Asia, markets are mixed as Trump softens on his tariff stance. So Japan is up, Shanghai is down, Hong Kong is up. Oil is down $1.10 to $60.97 US per barrel. Gold is down $29.30 to $3,313.50 US per ounce. And the dollar is down 0.07 of a cent to 72.2 cents US.
All right. Thanks a lot, Crystalie. We'll talk to you again tomorrow.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Marcy.
That's an abbreviated version of our business news with Crystalie Ramlakan. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is our post-election special on CBC, looking at a Liberal government again this morning. Mark Carney remains the Prime Minister. We don't yet know if this will be a majority government. There's a lot of seats still being counted across the country, including one riding here in Manitoba and Kildone and St. Paul. You were writing to us last night once CBC confirmed that the Liberals were going to be back in power in Ottawa and telling us what your thoughts were. Candy Shelby saying, hoping it's not a majority. Jane Senyu saying The Green Party really got shafted this time to be heard, even just to be heard, she says. Mainga Nimwe wrote in, just announced as the win for the Liberals, and Carney's the man for the job right now. I'm glad with this win. I'm hopeful for a majority. Sharon McElroy is saying, it makes me a little nervous at the balance of power, maybe the Bloc Québécois. And finally, Cheryl Kennedy-Corsell, another Manitoban, writing into CBC, it's time to take a united stand to make Canada harmonious, stronger, and more self-sufficient than ever. This is what I'm expecting of all the parties. It's time to respect our differences, check our egos, and work extremely hard on continuing to make Canada the best country to live in and raise our families. If you want to write to us, you can at Facebook. That's my Marcy Marcusa page online, acts as a show page, or you can call us at 788-3205. Or come down to Sal's. It's our post-election special at Pembina at Stafford in the riding of Winnipeg South Centre. Well, next on the show, let's have a closer look at what happened with the Conservatives last night. We have mentioned already that we're waiting to see if the Liberals have won a minority or majority. Vote counting has paused across the country right now until 8:30 our time locally. Even without forming government, the Conservatives have gained some significant ground in this country. However, Pierre Poilievre did not win his seat. Here's what he had to say to his supporters at Conservative headquarters last night.
Conservatives have achieved major breakthroughs tonight. We brought in record support from blue-collar and unionized workers, youth, new Canadians. We gave voices to countless people across this country who've been left out and left behind for far too long. We won the big debates of our time on the carbon tax, on inflation, on housing, on the drug crisis, on crime. Conservatives have been leading the debate, and we will continue to put forward the best arguments to improve the lives of our people right across this country. But we will not stop there. Every single day, our Conservative caucus and I will be holding the government to account on behalf of the millions of Canadians who believed in the message of change.
Joining me to talk about the results from the Conservative perspective is Fred Delory, Chair of North Star Public Affairs. He was also National Campaign Manager for the Conservative Party of Canada during the 2021 election and was an advisor to Stephen Harper. Good morning.
Good morning.
What's one word, Fred, to describe how you're feeling this morning as a Conservative in this country?
That's an interesting question. I was going to say exhausted, but because I haven't slept. But,
there's that too. Yeah, we get it.
But as a Conservative, confused maybe is the word, looking at all this, because nothing what we're seeing right now was ever supposed to happen, either in this campaign or preceding the campaign. If you recall, before this campaign even started, we had a 25-point lead, and we were supposed to win a largest majority in Canadian history, and that didn't materialize. At the same time, when this campaign got going, the way things shifted, it looked like the Liberals were going to win a huge majority, and that shifted as well. And we were able to hold them to a minority parliament, or at least as it stands now. There's still some votes to be counted and some tight ridings. But at the end of the day, we did grow a number of seats, which was, I think, unexpected. So there is some positive to this.
Poilievre lost his seat. Obviously, we just heard from him. He did say he intended to stay on as leader. What does his future look like, do you think? And where do you see, will he seek to run somewhere else then?
Yeah, it's going
to get a seat?
It's going to be complicated where he is leader of the Conservative Party, but he's no longer leader of the official opposition. That's a parliamentary role, and he's not a parliamentarian anymore. So he won't, when the House comes back in a few weeks or months, whenever Prime Minister Carney brings it back, he won't be there to respond to the speech from the throne or the budget or any other bills that come in. So that puts him at a big disadvantage. Having said that, he does have a very strong following within the Conservative Party. I think he has a lot of solid support. We saw the campaign he just ran and the rallies he held and the enthusiasm of Conservative supporters for his leadership. So I think in that regards, I think he's in a pretty strong position. To your question about whether he'll run, I would hope or expect maybe someone will give up a seat, maybe in another area that's a safer seat that would allow him to run in a by-election. But that can take time.
So, Fred, just to help Canadians understand this, then, who stands up as the leader of the opposition, given that the leader doesn't have a seat in the meantime?
That's a good question. He'll have to appoint someone to fill that role. I'm sure that would be the procedure.
Why? Obviously, you said there's good news in last night for the Conservatives, even though obviously you're disappointed. But why do you think that it wasn't better news, or what in the campaign to you? Why did we see this result for the Liberals last night?
Well, Canada turned into a two-party system. I know it's a minority parliament, so it seems strange to say that, but the NDP have really collapsed. The Bloc did as well in terms of a lot of their vote share, and the Green Party. Those three parties lost a lot of support that went mostly to the Liberals. Some did come to the Conservatives. I think the NDP, as we examine this election more, I think we'll see that the NDP actually bled to the Conservatives in a number of areas. But there seems to be a realignment of Canadian politics potentially here, and it could be long-term, where, 41% of the vote, which is the highest Conservatives got in a very long time, just may never be enough. We may need to get higher than that now, given the Liberals set a record. The Liberal Party got the highest vote share they got since 1980. So they did incredibly well as that front as well.
Doug Ford, we're already hearing people talking about Doug Ford this morning. In Ontario, one of the Conservatives there who won his riding, this is in Bowmansville, Oshawa North, Jamil Javani, was slamming the Ontario Premier, saying he was a problem, and he blamed him for getting in the Conservatives' way, he said. What's your sense of that?
Yeah, I think it's unfortunate and unnecessary to be pointing fingers at other Conservatives. I don't think that's I think that's a part of the approach that has led to some bad blood between all of the federal and provincial parties. I would hope that seeing everything that happened over the last number of months, there should be the federal party should be looking around, seeing how can they be making friends instead of enemies with some of our provincial cousins. I think that's a much better approach.
So let me ask you, because I'm sitting in Manitoba here, Fred, as you know, I'm already seeing some voters here saying, you know what last night says to me, Western separation. What is your sense about what we're going to see moving forward? Is that going to come up?
I don't look as a Maritimer. I'm uncomfortable giving my opinion on Western separation. As a non-Westerner, I just don't feel comfortable.
Fair enough.
But I will say, look, I think I think we have a wonderful country, the best country in the world, and I would hope that nothing like that evolves anywhere.
What do you make of Poilievre's tone? Speaking about unity here, now I'm pushing back. We just heard a clip here in the news where he said people started to boo Carney, as he was announcing the win last night, congratulating Carney. And Poilievre right away said, quiet down. And he said unity in this moment. Do you think that is a tone that he's going to continue to carry moving forward?
It'll be fascinating if he does, because that would be a pretty significant shift to his style. And I think it could be a welcome shift. We have seen some of his negatives are high amongst certain demographics. And, if there were times in this campaign where he really, I think, looked more of a statesman than an attack dog. And if he evolves into that, I think it could work out very well for him. Now, he's been the attack dog for Harper and for, I've worked with him for many, many years in Ottawa. That was a role he did incredibly well. He did it incredibly well against Trudeau, but maybe it's time to evolve that role for him.
And just last, Fred, we're not unlike a lot of other provinces in that you see that the rural ridings around Winnipeg are all blue. The city is a bit of a mix, but lots of Liberal seats, and then in the north it went Liberal. But we have that rural-urban split still, and that exists across the country. What do the Liberals need to do to speak to rural Canadians this morning? What do they need to understand moving forward?
Yeah, I think whatever cabinet Carney puts together, he needs to make sure rural is reflected in that. That is an area where the Liberals need to grow. Sometimes they'll make some inroads, and then the next election they get wiped out because they don't listen to rural voices. They tend to be a very urban-dominated political party. So if I was Prime Minister Carney or advising him, I would be looking, make sure you have strong rural voices at the cabinet table that's making decisions or that's able to weigh in on decisions that will affect rural Canadians.
Thank you so much, Fred. I always love watching you on the panel. Really a pleasure to have you on with CBC Manitoba.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on.
That's Fred Delory, chair of the North Star Public Affairs. He was also national campaign manager for the Conservative Party of Canada during the 2021 election and was an advisor to Stephen Harper.
Narrative, lyric, heroic, romantic. verse, or prose. The 2025 CBC Poetry Prize is on. Send in your best unpublished poem or poetry collection. Up for grabs, cash prizes from the Canada Council for the Arts, a 2-week writing residency at the Banff Centre for Arts and Creativity, and your work published on CBC Books. Contest closes June 1st. For rules and more, go to cbcbooks.ca.
Well, let's hear a little bit about last night's speech from Prime Minister Mark Carney. Looked to serve a 4th term in office now in a remarkable political comeback for the Liberals. Here's a small, tiny taste, a clip from his victory speech last night when he spoke about national unity.
As we come here after this most consequential election, let's put an end to the division and anger of the past. We are all Canadian, and my government will work for and with everyone.
So if you want to read more about what Mark Carney had to say last night, you can go to cbc.ca and you can, in fact, see part of the speech, and you can also see some of the transcripts of the speech. It was some 21 minutes, came late in the night. And so here we are this morning. It was a long night. In fact, Elections Canada has paused counting. They're going to resume at 8:30 this morning. You can imagine all those poll workers, right, counting all those votes across this country. We still don't know Kildonan and St. Paul this morning definitively, although Raquel Dancho, the Conservative, is in the lead by over 1,500 votes there right now. So let's have a closer look across the country. We just talked about Conservatives specifically, but Ryan Tumulty is here to look at the other parties, the Liberals, and of course one of the big stories, the NDP not forming an official party, and Jagmeet Singh losing as leader. He's lost his seat. So Ryan's with us most weeks. He's a political reporter with the Toronto Star. Hi, Ryan.
Hi there.
So what'd you make of the Liberals' results?
You know, I think you got to put it in the context of what a turnaround it is. 4 months ago, the Liberals were headed for third party status. They were headed they called it a save the furniture election. So, being on the doorsteps of a majority government is a big turnaround for them. They have to be happy about. But still, I think they'd like a few more seats, to be frank.
We still don't know if they'll get those seats, and if this is they're 4 seats away from forming a majority. If it is a minority government, what does this mean in terms of power share? Because we haven't talked a lot about that on our show yet this morning, where the other parties landed.
Yeah, with the numbers where they are right now, and that's a massive caveat, but with the numbers where they are right now, the Liberals can pass legislation with the support of the NDP, or the Conservatives or the Bloc. That's exactly where we were in the last Parliament. So certainly, not what the Liberals were hoping for. And I think this Parliament will be shakier as a minority than the last one. I don't see the NDP doing another confidence and supply agreement. I've been wrong before, but because maybe they will. But even the NDP support. If you have a couple of MPs who are sick or who resign or aren't there that day, we could see a snap election. So that is certainly something that I think is going to be difficult for the Liberals to navigate, especially with, Mark Carney want to really push through an agenda of change.
How do you think it will feel different than last time around, given that, as you're saying, we're seeing actually the balance of power, the way the numbers have fallen across the country, pretty much the same. There's still going to have to be deal making if we land with these numbers that we're seeing this morning with the Liberals in a minority position. How will it feel different, do you think, in terms of getting business done in Ottawa?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of hard to predict right now, right? Because as it stands right now, neither Jagmeet Singh or Pierre Poilievre will be in that legislature. So how does the deal-making work with the Conservative Party? Does Pierre Poilievre stay on as leader, even though he doesn't have a seat? And what kind of influence does he have on how the Conservative caucus votes? So I think there are a lot of open questions about how this Parliament would work. And until we actually see the final numbers, until people start talking, I think it'll be difficult to see where we're exactly gonna land.
Last night, the leader of the NDP, Jagmeet Singh, announced he's stepping down. So obviously they didn't form official party status. Where do they go from here?
Yeah, this was a really difficult night for them. last I saw it, Elmwood Transcona, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but went to the Conservatives. That's a riding that has been in the NDP's hands for decades. So that is a huge setback to them. And there are ridings like that across the country, in Windsor and other places. All of that said, I think a lot of NDP voters parked their support with the Liberals this time because of concerns about Donald Trump and because of concerns about Pierre Poilievre and not wanting to see him win. I don't know if NDP supporters keep those votes with the Liberals, especially with a, frankly, pretty centrist, maybe even right of center Mark Carney government. So we'll have to wait and see on that.
I was going to ask last night, the Liberals' win came at the expense of the NDP, but also of the Bloc, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The Bloc lost, I believe, about 10 seats in the final counting. That is a big setback for that party as well. Certainly, they still maintain official party status. They'll still be a voice in Parliament, but they lost a lot of MPs, again, people who had represented the party for a long time. And the Liberals broke through in places that were surprising. So a lot of really interesting results last night. I mean, there are races certainly where the Liberals won that I was surprised to see them win, and races where they lost where I was really surprised to see them lose. Places like in Quebec, Trois-Rivières, that's a riding the Liberals have tried to win for years and have been unsuccessful, but they pulled that out. Whereas some of the ridings in the GTA that they've held since 2015, they lost.
One of the panelists last night was saying that the results in Quebec for the Liberals were as strong as they were. Like, you have to go back decades and decades to see this kind of a support for the Liberals in Quebec. So much more analysis to come once the numbers land. Thank you, Ryan. It's been a long month. Thanks for all of your analysis.
Thank you.
That is Ryan Tumulty, political reporter with the Toronto Star. We reached him this morning in Ottawa. All right, let's get back to Manitoba here. 3 minutes to 7 o'clock. I'm Marcy Marcusa. You're on CBC this morning. And Ryan was correct. There was change last night in Elmwood Transcona, where Colin Reynolds is the new MP there. He is the Conservative, and he beat the NDP, Leela Dance, who actually had won in a by-election last September, but she lost last night, and by quite a big margin. Let's find out more about the Manitoba results and analysis. Heather Wells now with our headlines.
Good morning. Yes, and another seat in Winnipeg that changed hands. Winnipeg West, where Liberal Doug Eyolfson defeated Conservative Marty Morantz. The Liberals did hang on to St. Boniface St. Vital.
Let's move forward together.
Jeanette Levac keeping the seat just vacated by Liberal Dan Vandal. And in northern Manitoba, a fresh face representing that area, the large riding of Kiiwetinoong-Aski, Liberal Rebecca Chartrand wins that, defeating the NDP's Nikki Ashton, who had represented that area since 2008. I'll be back with more Manitoba news at 7:30.
Thank you, Heather. -5 right now. We've got a clear sky, but it is chilly this morning. It will warm up to a high of 12, though, with lots of sunshine in Winnipeg, and your morning commute is going just fine. Thanks for joining us here. We're looking out the big windows at that blue sky. We're at the Sal's at Salisbury House at Pembina and Stafford this morning. And we're going to have lots of folks joining us in the next hour, including the three that make up our partisan panel. Now that we know which party will run the country for the next 4 years, we'll find out what our Made in Manitoba political panel thinks of that. So one last time, we'll have them joining us live here with reaction to the results. Also, we're going to get some deeper analysis from Chris Adams to start our hour. He has long been analyzing politics in this province, so we're going to hear more about what he makes of the changes that Heather was just talking about that we saw in our province last night, so stay tuned for that. Plus, we're going to hear from a few more of the people who ran last night, including the new Liberal MP in St. Boniface, and Doug Eyolfson will join us live as well. A busy hour ahead.
Summer of 2019, Scott Payne wanted to join a white supremacist group called The Base. But Scott wasn't a neo-Nazi or a right-wing extremist. He was an FBI agent.
They hit me back and said, we'd like to have you. And of course I said yes.
I'm Kathleen Goldhar, and this week on Crime Story, Scott takes me into his 28-year career as an undercover operative. Find Crime Story wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Marcia Young at the CBC Broadcasting Centre.
And I'm John Northcott in Yorkminster Park in Toronto St. Paul's, a riding that turned red again in this historic federal election.
This is a special edition of World Report.
When we are kind, kindness grows. When we seek unity, unity grows. When we are Canadian, Canada grows.
Mark Carney is staying in his role as Prime Minister. The Liberals will form government for a fourth term, but at this point, they do not have enough seats for a majority. There are still more than 24 ridings that are too close to call.
We are all Canadian, and my government will work for and with everyone.
The Liberals and Conservatives each got more than 40% of the popular vote. That means Carney has few natural allies to turn to. The NDP is projected to lose official party status. Jagmeet Singh was defeated in his riding and says it's time to look for a new leader.
I've been informed a party leader that I'll be stepping down as party leader as soon as an interim leader can be appointed.
The Bloc Québécois could find itself in a powerful position. It is projected to come out of this election in third place with 23 seats. As Tom Perry reports, Carney is promising he will find partners to help him enact his agenda.
Who's ready? Who's ready to stand up for Canada with me?
A win that just a few months ago seemed unthinkable. The Liberals elected to a fourth term under their new leader, Prime Minister Mark Carney.
And my message to every Canadian is this. No matter where you live, no matter what language you speak, no matter how you voted, I will always do my best to represent everyone who calls Canada home.
The Liberals won the most seats but fell short of a majority which polls suggested was in reach. Carney says he'll work with all parties. The Liberals are pledging to boost home construction, build energy corridors across the country, all at a time when Canada is facing threats to its economy and sovereignty from U.S. President Donald Trump.
We will protect our workers and businesses, and above all, we will build an independent future for our great country.
One of Carney's first jobs will be to open talks with the U.S. president on tariffs, trade, and a new framework for Canada-U.S. relations, a tall order for a new prime minister who has promised an ambitious agenda in uncertain times.
Vive le Canada. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.
Tom Perry, CBC News, Ottawa.
Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre has conceded to Carney, but is vowing to hold his government to account. He's also celebrating the fact that Conservatives will have more seats in this parliament, but Poilievre's own seat is not one of them. He was defeated in his Ottawa-Carleton riding. If the party does not oust him, another Conservative MP could resign so Poilievre can run for that seat in a by-election. John Paul Tasker has more.
It will be an honor to continue to fight for you and to be a champion of your cause as we go forward.
After failing to unseat Mark Carney and the Liberals in Monday's vote, Pierre Poilievre says he's staying on as Conservative Party leader.
We are cognizant of the fact that we didn't quite get over the finish line yet. We know that change is needed, but change is hard to come by. It takes time. It takes work.
Just 4 months ago, Poilievre was poised to lead his party to a massive majority government. But former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's resignation and U.S. President Donald Trump's trade war scrambled the electoral equation. And now victory has slipped through Poilievre's fingers. Still, the Conservatives had a respectable showing, holding the Liberals to a minority government while posting their best share of the national vote in a generation.
And that's why we have to learn the lessons of tonight so that we can have an even better result the next time the Canadians decide the future for the country.
Poilievre says he will work with the other parties to protect Canada in the face of Trump. But the Conservative leader says he will be back to finish what he started. If he can stay on is an open question. The party has pushed out the last two leaders who fell short of victory. JP Tasker, CBC News, Ottawa.
Right now, the NDP is leading in or projected to win just 7 seats. It needs 12 to maintain official party status. But Jagmeet Singh says New Democrats will not be kept down for long.
We are only defeated if we stop fighting. We're only defeated when we believe that those that tell us that we can never dream of a better Canada, a fairer Canada, a more compassionate Canada. I have met New Democrats from coast to coast to coast who will never back down, even when they're told that there's no room for them at the table.
John, the last time the NDP lost official party status was in 1993.
And Marcia, we're keeping a close eye on results in Kitchener Centre. That riding held by the Greens, but right now it's too close to call. If the party loses, the Green Party will have just one seat in Parliament. It belongs to party co-leader Elizabeth May. Olivia Stefanovich has more.
A win wasn't guaranteed for Elizabeth May. The Green Party co-leader was facing stiff competition from the Liberals and Conservatives to keep her usually safe seat. But once the results started to pour in, May jumped to her feet and started dancing.
Parliament needs more Green voices. If we're not there, democracy suffers.
This is May's 5th time winning the riding of Saanich Gulf Islands. Even though she will be returning to Ottawa, May won't be joined by her co-leader Jonathan Pedneau. He lost his race in the Quebec riding of Outremont. May says Pedneau was deprived of a major breakthrough when the Greens were banned from the federal leaders' debates. A last-minute decision taken after the Greens failed to meet the participation requirements, and one that the party is now fighting in federal court.
Nobody got to hear a single thing about the Greens.
Pedneau posted on social media about his dismay with the Green Party's results. He says the Greens need to learn from the outcome and accountability is needed. Pedneau says he plans to speak with May to discuss his future in politics and eventual transitions. Olivia Stefanovich, CBC News, Victoria.
Mark Carney has made it clear that Canada will not be bullied by the United States. Carney says he plans to sit down with U.S. President Donald Trump soon, and he says he will make it clear that Canada has trading options outside the U.S. The CBC's Richard Madden joins me now from Washington. And Richard, what does this mean for Canada-U.S. relations?
Yeah, it means the tough work begins to negotiate a new partnership, which was a central theme of Carney's campaign. He billed himself as a crisis manager. Now, President Donald Trump has yet to comment or issue a statement on his victory, but last night, Carney described the administration as hostile to Canada's interests and vowed to chart a new course under his leadership. Here's what he said to his supporters last night.
America wants our land, our resources, our water, our country. Never. These are not idle threats. President Trump is trying to break us so that America can own us.
Now, the White House has already slapped several tariffs on Canada, including on steel, aluminum, and cars. And President Trump also keeps pushing his annexation threats and insults of making Canada the 51st state. Now, Carney says he'll raise all these issues when the two eventually meet face to face. Listen.
When I sit down with President Trump, it will be to discuss the future economic and security relationship between two sovereign nations. And it will be with our full knowledge that we have many, many other options than the United States to build prosperity for all Canadians.
Now, Canada will host the G7 in June. Assuming Trump attends, the two leaders would meet then, if not sooner. It should also be noted that today marks Trump's first 100 days in office. This is a symbolic milestone where presidents are typically at the peak of their power. And so far, Trump hasn't mocked Carney or given him an insulting nickname. So it's unclear if that's a sign of respect or if Trump is still sizing him up and biding his time.
Thank you, Richard.
Thanks.
The CBC's Richard Madden in Washington. And recapping the results from Canada's federal election, Mark Carney will be the next prime minister. Right now, his Liberals are leading in or projected to win 168 seats. That is minority territory.
Still more, though, than 24 ridings too close to call. Elections Canada says it plans to resume counting ballots at 9:30 Eastern Time. Pierre Poilievre lost his home riding of Ottawa-Carleton and has vowed to keep fighting on behalf of Conservatives. NDP leader Jagmeet Singh says he will resign as party leader.
For up-to-the-minute developments, stay tuned right here to CBC Radio or on the CBC Listen app.
Or you can follow along on cbcnews.ca. I'm John Northcott.
I'm Marcia Young. This is CBC News.
We've shown that we can work across the aisle with the Bloc, with the NDP, even with the Conservatives at times. So I'm confident that we'll find a way to move forward and work for the betterment of Quebecers and Canadians.
That is Liberal incumbent and re-elected last night in Winnipeg South, Representative Terry Duguid. And they will right now, the Liberals have to work with someone because we don't yet know if they'll get that majority they were seeking. They're still sitting in a minority position this morning. 7:10 a.m. It's our post-election live show. I'm Marcy Marcusa. You're on CBC 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. We're live at the Salisbury House out in Winnipeg South Centre, where Ben Carr, another Liberal, also won last night. So there was change in Manitoba. It was across the country, one to watch. And as you heard, they're still counting this morning, including in Kildonan and St. Paul. Stay with us for our special coverage. So this hour on the show, we have our partisan political panel. We also have Christopher Adams to shed light on what Manitobans can expect moving forward from the results. We will also be hearing from some of the people who won last night. And before I mention who they are, let's go to Heather Wells and hear more about those local results. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, 2 Winnipeg area seats changed hands. In the newly renamed riding of Winnipeg West, Liberal Doug Eyolfson defeated Conservative Marty Morantz. The Conservatives won one Winnipeg seat, Colin Reynolds defeating NDP incumbent Leela Dance in Elmwood Transcona, and 2 new faces from outside Winnipeg. Liberal Rebecca Chartrand won the riding of Churchill Kiiwetinoong Aski, defeating the NDP's Nikki Ashton, who had represented that riding since 2008. And in Brandon Souris, former MLA Grant Jackson wins for the Conservatives. I'll be back with more Manitoba news at 7:30.
All right. Thanks very much, Heather. So, there was a change last night in Manitoba. I mentioned that we have some live interviews this morning. So we have confirmed that coming up after your 7:30 news, we'll have Doug Eyolfson live with us here at the Sal's. As you just heard, he has won back Winnipeg West, so he's going to be joining us live. And then after 8 o'clock, we have Ben Carr, who remains the Liberal MP for Winnipeg South Centre, and he will also join us live here at Salisbury House. And we'll get to some of your comments in a moment. You've been writing since overnight, but first let's dip into the weather forecast. It's the second morning where it really feels a little chilly, although we've got beautiful sunshine this morning, Abby.
True, Massey. Clear, sunshine up, chilly stat. Right now, Winnipeg -5 still, but things are looking pretty sunny for us through the morning. This will help shake off that cold. By the afternoon period, we're expecting the sunny conditions to stick around, and temperatures will climb nicely to 12 degrees. A gentle breeze will come from the south, and that's just going to be a mild touch to the day. If you've got plans, that it might just work out well for you. Similar conditions we're seeing in other regions down south. We're seeing -7, -8 for Brandon, Dauphin, and Gimli, and most of the regions will be seeing lows of teens today. But right now, Winnipeg, we are at -5, warming up to 12 degrees.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Corey Funk, heard anything about the commute this morning?
No, haven't heard anything yet. Very quiet overall. I will say if you are biking, you may want to wear balaclava or something because your face might hurt a little bit. There was a bit of a north wind that bit me on the way in this morning, so heads up there. Didn't expect that. Kind of forgot that was an option.
I love that I said it that way, like I didn't bike at all.
Right?
But my hands are cold.
You're driving with the windows down, right? Yeah. But if you do see something going on or you want to tell me about your commute, you're walking, biking, driving, give me a call, 204-788-3093.
Well, let's go over the voters and find out what Manitobans are thinking this morning about the results last night. So just a reminder, we went in Manitoba with 7 Conservatives, 3 NDP, 4 Liberals. This morning, 1 NDP still stands. That's Leah Gazan in Winnipeg Centre, the only one in the province. The Liberals are up 2. They are now at 6 seats in Manitoba. The Conservatives still strong in those rural ridings, lost the North as you heard, but they are, as it sits, they are going to be at 7 seats, but they are leading in that 7th seat, and that is Kildonan and St. Paul, where they're still counting, so that's not official. So they've been elected in 6. Dave Patrician is with us here. He's actually operations manager at the Sal's. How'd you vote last night, Dave?
I voted red. I've been a Liberal voter since the day of Ron Duhamel, because I'm a person that truly votes for the person that does the best good in the area, and Duhamel did that, Samar did that. They went blue for a little while with Shelley Glover, and I voted for Shelley Glover because I was a big supporter of hers, but yesterday yesterday it was Jeanette Levac after Dan Vandal. And again, it's the person that makes the difference in my area.
Oh, got it. Now people can hear them what your riding is. St. Boniface, St. Vital last night. And so you're right. Obviously, the Liberals hold there. It's interesting because provincially you share with us that you usually vote Conservative. Last time you didn't, you said, but you have voted Conservative in the past. And as you said, you vote for person, even federally, right? So what was it this time? Given that, any party, you're one of those voters people try to unlock, who can grab your vote because you will change, looking at the person. What were the issues that brought you to the Liberals beyond just the candidate?
I think you played the clip at 6:50 that kind of summed it up with Mark Carney saying he truly wants to work with all Canadians. And I really get that vibe from him. I'm not an anti-Pierre Poilievre guy because, like I said, my provincial swing usually is progressive conservative, being a business person. But there is just something about Carney, his experience, his knowledge that grabbed me. And same thing with Jeanette Levac. She ran the Festival Voyageur for years. I knew her former husband before he passed away. And that is a good, strong person to represent my needs in my area.
Local mattered to you.
100%.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, and thank you so much for having us here again at a Salisbury House for our election coverage.
My pleasure.
That's Dave Patrician. He's operations manager here at Salisbury House, but wanted to come on air and be open about how he voted last night. Jeremy Anderson did as well. He's just having coffee. He's actually finished his breakfast and on his way, but Jeremy Anderson voted Liberal as well in Kildonan and St. Paul, but he also says he voted Conservative last time, so he changed his vote. He was ready to do it again, but he shared with CBC. He said he didn't like what Poilievre was saying about Canada being broken. His quote was, "We're not broken. We just are in need of a course correction," end quote. He also felt that Poilievre was too friendly with Trump. So that's why his vote went that way last night. So 2 Manitobans weighing in. And we have many, many more comments here online. I'll just get through a few and then we're going to get into some official analysis with Chris Adams, who's listening in. So PJB wrote in, "I'm relieved about the results. Canada rejects hate and division." Kristen Hathaway writes in, "When Quebec started to unify with the rest of Canada to avoid being absorbed by the states, the writing was on the wall. I'm not surprised they put water in their wine, and the Bloc Québécois and the Conservatives took a hit in the election given the Trump effect." And so she's looking nationally at what happened there, and she's right. Quebec was really part of the reason the Liberals are seeing this result today. And finally, Candy Shelby writing in, "I hope it's not a majority." So we are in a position this morning where we don't yet know if the Liberals will form a majority government. They're in a minority position. Let's talk to Chris Adams, who's with us now. He is an adjunct professor in political studies at the University of Manitoba. He had a late night, as many of us did.
Yes.
But he, hi, Chris. But he's here to talk through it. First, what do you make of what you're hearing from some of the Manitobans this morning about, we heard from, 2 that changed their votes?
Well, I wish I were sitting with you, Marcy, eating a breakfast nip. But I would say, Manitoba is a bellwether for Canada. And much of what we saw in Winnipeg is what we saw elsewhere in the country. We saw the NDP declining down to 1 vote, and similar across Canada, the NDP had a real decline. We saw a surge of the Liberals to where they were about 4 months ago, and that's eaten away into some of the Conservative support and NDP support. So we saw seats flip in Manitoba, a couple of seats flip, reflecting what was going on in Canada. One seat was of particular interest is my neighborhood of Elmwood-Transcona. The fact that Ian McIntyre's Liberal vote went way up from the by-election indicated a pull away from Leela Dance's support for the NDP, and the Conservative Colin Reynolds came in. And a lot of people were surprised, but those who are following these 3-way races saw Elmwood-Transcona likely flipping. So it was a fascinating race last night and well into the early morning hours. And I think Manitoba continues to be a bellwether for the country.
And I just want to mention to the folks that vote in Winnipeg South, where Terry Duguid won again last night, the incumbent, they still maintain their record from 1988, right? How that riding goes, and it has gone Conservative, it's gone Liberal back and forth. How that riding goes the government, and that happened again last night.
Yeah. As Winnipeg South goes, so goes the nation. And I remember chatting with David Shribman, who was with the Los Angeles Times at the time, writing for both the Globe and the Times, and he'd come into the city particularly to look at Winnipeg South some years ago, and because of that thing. And, a number of us political scientists, myself included, we 5 months ago or 4 months ago, we wrote off all these Liberals, thinking, okay, well, there's no way they're going to win these ridings. And sure enough, Justin Trudeau steps down, and Mark Carney becomes the shiny new penny, and Donald Trump throws everything into disarray. So what people like Eric Grenier from the poll tracker for CBC 4 months ago was saying like a 2% chance of the Liberals forming the next government reversed itself, and Grenier had projections of 85% just yesterday on his CBC website. So things really changed around drastically the past 4 months.
I want to get into the change ridings here. So we have a change in the north, and we have a change in Winnipeg West, and you talked about Elmwood Transcona already. So let's go north, where Rebecca Chartrand won for the Liberals. She defeated Nikki Ashton, who'd been the incumbent there for some 17 years. What sense do you make of that?
Well, if you look at the election map, the colors, much of northern Canada went Liberal last night, and the NDP has really two strengths. Historically, it's in the urban areas like working class neighborhoods like Elmwood and Transcona, and historically also in the north. And when the NDP has been shellacked or beaten up badly, it's the north that kind of preserves the party until it can come back in the cities, and that happened with the provincial NDP some years ago. So I'm not surprised with the surge for the Liberals that often people in the north find the Liberals appealing if they look like they'll form power. And you might remember Tina Keeper. She won that riding some years ago, as did Elijah Harper, another Liberal MP in the northern half of Manitoba. So I wasn't surprised when we saw Rebecca Chartrand last night win this riding, and I would expect Nikki Ashton to come back in the next couple of elections to try to win that back into the NDP fold.
Let's go to Winnipeg West, where Marty Morantz lost last night. Liberal Doug Eyolfson picks that up. He'll join us live in the next half hour of the show. Why do you think that Marty Morantz lost?
Well, I think the Liberal surge across Canada, that this sort of followed that. Eyolfson and Marty Morantz are both in some ways incumbents because both had held that seat in the past. So both names were familiar, and Winnipeg West is a kind of a combination of suburban and urban voters. So I think all told, this was a riding that was in play. I would have said 4 months ago it wouldn't be in play, but now it is. I remember talking to, I think it was Carol Sanders at the Free Press when Eyolfson, sorry, I'm mispronouncing his name, but when he jumped into the race, it looked like, oh man, he doesn't have a chance of taking that seat back. And that was about 6 months ago. And thinking now, boy, things change, and it's the volatility of voters, and I think also there is some antipathy towards Pierre Poilievre in many quarters, and I think if we'd seen a different leader of the Conservatives, maybe some of those seats wouldn't have gone to the Liberals. And I'm thinking if Aaron O'Toole had been the previous leader, I think he was less of a lightning rod for some voters. And but anyway, it was an interesting riding to see flip.
I want to read you something here because this is going to speak to something that has held the same in Manitoba. We have we are surrounded by blue. We talked about the north being different, but otherwise our rural ridings are conservative, and in this city then we have a mix, but we mostly have have some conservatives, but mostly liberal. No liberals rurally though, around in the rural areas. Yeah. I want to read you something from Luke Neufeld. He voted in Riding Mountain. He wasn't sure how he'd vote, and he wrote to us overnight. In the end, he did vote for the Conservatives. He liked Dan Mazer. He lives in the riding. He said it's a small community, and I find he shows up, he listens, I appreciate it. But then I asked how he feels about the results, and he wrote to CBC this morning, Chris, I always prefer a minority government. It's looking that way. Majorities can steamroll certain groups. And then he also said one thing that worries him this morning is separatists hold the balance of power. So he's talking about worrying about that. And he said, will Alberta want to separate? So where do we sit on those fronts this morning? If we do end up in a minority position, what might people be thinking about moving forward here? What could be it? What could happen?
Well, many people do think that way, that minority governments can be creative, and a government that has to rely on another party to hold on to power has to be a governing party that has to negotiate and can't just steamroll things through the House of Commons because they have a majority. But, right now, looking at the Canada Vote CBC website, 168 Liberals and 7 NDP, that's enough to keep the Liberals in power. They don't have to rely on the BQ. Of course, some of those numbers can change, but I think that's the most likely scenario, is that we'll see these 7 NDP MPs likely negotiating with the Liberals, and I'm sure they'll negotiate hard for the Liberals to have their support for governing. And it's not unusual to have minority governments in Canada. The last 2 Liberal elections have been minority governments after 2015. And Stephen Harper, 2 of his 3 governments were run as minority governments. So it's more the norm in Canada compared to, years ago during the Chrétien years, and before then it was more normal to have majority governments. But now Canadians are sort of more relying on minority governments to run their country.
We'll see where it lands by the end of the day. Right now we're in minority position, as you're saying. Thank you so much. Always a pleasure.
Sure. Order me a nip, please.
You said it twice. I think you really want one. We'll have to get one sent to you.
These French flakes aren't doing it for me, Marcy. Take care.
Take care. Christopher Adams, adjunct professor in political studies at the University of Manitoba. 7:26 a.m. post-election day. It's our special. Call if you want to weigh in. Right now it's time to move to morning sports. We have Scott Regehr with us. Good morning.
Hey, Marcy.
So how could the results of the federal election affect sport in Canada?
Well, Prime Minister Carney, a lifelong Edmonton Oilers fan, Marcy, so I expect he will have them replace the Leafs tonight in prime time for the NHL playoffs. In some countries, that would not be a joke. Happy to live in Canada then, where things will be as you expect. Battle of Ontario first, then the Edmonton and LA series. But one way, in all seriousness, sport could be affected is if Carney continues not to have a minister dedicated specifically to it, Marcy. Remember, when he took over as PM in March, Carney shrunk his cabinet, folding the sports and heritage portfolios together. CBC asked the head of the Canadian Olympic Committee, David Shoemaker, about that.
Whether we have a specific sport minister or whether we have a minister with a broader portfolio that includes sport, the key for us is that it's somebody who is a strong advocate for sport, understands the needs of athletes, understands the needs of our sport institutions, gets that, and makes the strong case for them within caucus and within the federal cabinet.
Whether or not sports has its own portfolio in the Liberal government, Marcy, we'll see, but it is an especially important decision given the Olympic Games in Italy are less than a year away.
What are you expecting in hockey? Expecting the Battle of Ontario, as it resumes tonight? What do you think is going to happen there?
Well, obviously, since they face elimination, a desperate Senators team, Marcy, they trail 3-1, so Ottawa's going to have to come out fast and quiet Toronto's very expectant home crowd. The Senators should be relatively well rested. Their coach, Travis Green, gave them Sunday off, and he explains why.
I think it's important that you get your mind off of it. There's a lot of talk. As a player, you're always thinking about it. It's hard to get away from it. Everyone you talk to wants to bring up the series or the games, the playoffs, and that's the exciting part. It's not a bad thing, but I think it is important if you can just get away and do something that isn't hockey related. And we've talked about winning the day a lot, and sometimes winning the day is giving yourself a mental break.
Yeah, Green knows well enough about the stresses of the Battle of Ontario, having played for the other guys, the Leafs, the last time it took place 21 years ago. Regardless of who wins tonight, I expect it will be a feisty affair. Puck drops 6 o'clock Central Time, while the Oilers in LA, they'll do battle at 9 Central Time. The backup goalie there is Calvin Pickard in Edmonton, and he's taken over for Stuart Skinner, something I'm sure our Prime Minister, Carney, will be keenly aware of, given the fact he tended goal for Harvard back in the day. And just one other thing before I head off, the CFL draft goes tonight, Marcy. Both 3 Down Nation and TSN have the Bombers selecting Jackson Finley, a defensive back with the Western Mustangs, with the 6th overall pick. We shall see.
All right, thanks a lot, Scott. Take care.
You too.
Scott Reguera with Morning Sports. You're on CBC's Information Radio. I'm Marcy Marcusa. You're on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. Thanks for joining us. It's our post-election special. We're live at Sal's. People coming in, talking politics, getting coffee, and that's exactly what we're telling you to do. We're at Stafford and Pembina if you want to join us here. Doug Eyolfson has walked in. He has been elected in Winnipeg West. We're going to have a live interview with him momentarily. Also, people are sitting down and sharing with us. Like Eric David says, I'm a Métis citizen and voted Liberal last night. We're still dealing with land claims, and if the Conservatives have won, I feared those negotiations would end. So people are sharing how they voted. Now that we know the results, let's lean into Manitoba now with your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 7:30, it is chilly. It's -5 in downtown Winnipeg. It's a cool sun today, a high of just 12. Mark Carney will stay on as Canada's Prime Minister.
Who's ready to build Canada strong?
It is not yet clear whether Carney will have a majority or minority in Parliament. In a speech last night, Carney vowed to stand up for Canada in the trade war with the U.S.
When I sit down with President Trump, it will be to discuss the future economic and security relationship between two sovereign nations.
Now, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre conceded defeat last night.
To the millions of people who voted for the Conservative Party and put their hopes and dreams in our vision, thank you. It will be an honor to continue to fight for you and to be a champion of your cause as we go forward.
Now, Poilievre says he plans to stay on as Conservative leader, although he is projected to lose his own seat. Meanwhile, NDP leader Jagmeet Singh announcing last night he is resigning from his post.
Tonight, I've been informed our party leader that I'll be stepping down as party leader as soon as an interim leader can be appointed. Now, I could not have done this incredible job without, here's a point, give me a second to break down a bit. I couldn't have done it without the incredible support of my wife, Kidden.
Now, not only did Singh lose his seat in BC, the new Democratic Party could lose official party status. Here in Winnipeg, 2 seats changed hands last night as both the Liberals and Conservative parties increased their share of the popular vote. CBC's Bartley Kivas now on changes in our political map.
I'm back.
Applause at the Holiday Inn West on Portage Avenue for Liberal Doug Eyolfson, who is returning to Ottawa after a hiatus as a Liberal MP. In the newly renamed riding of Winnipeg West, Eyolfson defeated Conservative Marty Morantz, the man who defeated Eyolfson in 2019.
I would like to thank Marty Morantz for his work representing us for the last 6 years. Marty, you worked hard for us through challenging times, and we thank you.
The Conservatives also won a Winnipeg area seat. Conservative Colin Reynolds defeated NDP incumbent Leela Dance in Elmwood-Transcona. She only served as an MP for 7 months.
I feel so grateful for everybody that I got to meet on this journey.
The NDP's Nikki Ashton also lost Churchill Kiiwetinoong-Aski to the Liberal Rebecca Chartrand. This left the New Democrats with 1 Manitoba seat, Winnipeg Centre. The Liberals have 6 seats in this province, and the Conservatives have at least 6 as well. Bartley Kivas, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Now, in Winnipeg South Centre, Liberal Ben Carr won his second election and says Canadians want the governing party to work with the opposition right now.
The country can simply not afford right now political grandstanding in Parliament. We have to be able to work together. We are facing an existential crisis by virtue of provocations from the American administration. The country needs us to be on the same page.
Carr says the U.S. threat made this election more consequential than any other recent contest. Grant Jackson is the new Conservative MP for Brandon-Souris.
We're going to have a little fun tonight, and then we're going to get to work tomorrow morning. Thank you so much for your support.
The 28-year-old former PC MLA secured more than 60% of the votes in the riding, succeeding longtime Tory MP Larry Maguire, who did not seek re-election. Jackson says people in Brandon-Souris are most concerned with 2 things: the impact of the United States tariffs under President Donald Trump and the rising cost of living.
I would say it was equal among the amount of doors that he came up, as well as people concerned about affordability, the price of groceries, the price of housing. Those 2 issues would be tied, basically, in my experience at the doors, as the top 2 issues.
Now, Elections Canada has paused counting ballots until 8:30 this time, Manitoba time. So that's just in about an hour. We will see Elections Canada resume counting. So those ridings that are not yet decided will have some movement coming up. Elections Canada has, however, released the numbers for voter turnout in yesterday's federal election. Despite record-setting numbers at advanced polls, the overall national turnout did not set records. Slightly more than 67% of registered voters voted across the country. That's about the same as 2019. In the last election in 2021, that number was 62%. You can find more news updated throughout the day. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
With a quick look at our forecast, I can see a big blue sky out here, Abby, but a lot of people walking into the Sal's at Pembina and Stafford are saying it's also a bit chilly. Like your hands are chilly if you don't have like maybe a pair of mitts on or something this morning.
That's true. It's a chilly one kicking things off this clear morning in the city. We're still at -5. Don't worry, the sun is going to be warming things up shortly, and we'll see lots of sunshine through the morning just to help us shake off the chill. As we move into the afternoon, the sunny conditions will stick around. Temperatures will climb to -12. Then we'll see some gentle breeze from the south just to make things feel nicer for that walk or the yard walk you really want to do. And then similar conditions we're seeing in the southern province. We're seeing -7s and -8 right now, also warming up to -11, 12, and 13. Up north, we're seeing temperatures around -3 in Flin Flon. Thompson is at -9, and Churchill is at -17, with a wind chill at -25 this morning.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Corey, are you hearing anything about the commute?
Yeah, actually, with a reminder for tomorrow, actually, Jeff with a G phone to remind me. It says on the Winnipeg website as well, southbound Keewaydin, right around Logan, kind of between Alexander and Pacific, is actually going to be closed for sewer work completely. Southbound Keewaydin tomorrow until May 30th, said the city. So entire month. So if that involves your commute, you may want to find another way to get where you need to go starting tomorrow. If you do see anything else, though, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number 204-788-3093.
All right, thanks, Corey.
Thank you.
Well, 7:36 a.m. and since 2019, Winnipeg West has been represented by the Conservatives. That did change last night, as you heard in the news. So the riding was won by the Liberals. Emergency Room Doctor Doug Eyolfson unseated Conservative incumbent Marty Morantz. This is the third consecutive race between the two. You remember Morantz unseated Eyolfson in 2019, then won again by a small margin in 2021. Following his loss, Marty Morantz addressed supporters. He said he has no intention of running for public office again.
Kind of looking forward not to having to fly back and forth to Ottawa every week, which has been going on for the last 6 years. I give a lot of credit to anyone who takes this on. It's a very hard life. It's a very rewarding life. It's a lot of traveling back and forth, being away from your family. So I'm going to cherish this time that I have now with my family. And we'll see. You know, you never know where life is going to take you. There's a brand new configuration in Parliament. I don't know what the final seat count was. Last time I checked, it looked like the NDP didn't have enough seats to hold the balance of power, which would mean that the Liberals, as a minority government, are going to have to seek support of our party or the Bloc, or both. So they're going to have to work with us. And that's a tremendous opportunity for our party to advocate for the policies that we've been talking about throughout this campaign in order to make sure Canada is open for business again.
That was Conservative candidate Marty Morantz speaking to his supporters after his loss last night in Winnipeg West. And he was talking about the NDP at the point in the night. We know now this morning the NDP have 7 seats across the province. 1 is here in Winnipeg Centre, and that is not enough for official party status. But let's talk Winnipeg West, because the winner there last night is sitting right beside me, the riding's new MP again. Doug Eyolfson is back, and it's Sal's. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Why do you think you got it done last night in Winnipeg West?
A lot of really hard work on the part of a lot of people. I had some very hardworking volunteers. I knew that going into it this time that there was a good chance because it was so close last time. So I think people were just realizing that, or seeing that they wanted to continue, with the policies this government had. That there's a lot of things they cared about that they wanted to see preserved.
Like what? What did they talk to you about at the doorsteps that they wanted to see preserved?
They wanted to see pharmacare preserved. They wanted to see the dental program, child care, I think like $10 a day child care, the school lunch program, these things that would actually really help people that, Mr. Poilievre had said he wanted to get rid of because he said these were not necessary programs, and people thought that this was concerning. They didn't want to lose those.
How do you think that the ongoing trade war with the U.S. and sentiment towards President Trump impacted this election?
It had a large effect. A lot of people were, have been very concerned about the events in the United States, not just from the trade perspective, but from the human rights perspective. Every day there's a new piece of news that's making people very concerned, and a lot of people told me they want to see Canada going in a much different direction than what we're seeing south of us.
Your riding had been representative for the Conservatives, obviously, for the last 6 years. Now people are putting their faith in you. What would you say to those folks that did in Winnipeg West last night vote Conservative, and they're wondering how you're going to represent them in Ottawa?
Mm-hmm. I'll say to those voters and to all voters, you are my constituents. I don't care how you voted. If you have concerns, if you need help, that's what I'm there for. Job one is representing you in Ottawa, and that is what I'll say to these people.
How was last night for you? Who did you celebrate with, and where were you when you found the results? Came in.
Yeah, we were actually in the same place that we celebrated in 2015, the Holiday Inn Airport West, and I had a large group of volunteers there celebrating with me. My wife, of course, was with me, and a lot of members of my family, some very good friends. And I have to admit, we didn't celebrate long. We were all very tired by the end of the night.
Yes,
and
there's a lot of tired guests this morning.
yes, yeah. And I had worked yesterday on a day shift in emergency, wow. So it was a long day.
So let me ask you this then, Dr. Eyolfson. What does this do to you? How does this impact your job as a doctor now?
Well, I will do what I can to keep my skills, keep my license. Well, I never really lost my license last time, but I want to keep my hand in this. So, of course, I'll resign my position there. But they have casual. There's always time to fill in. If I'm in town for a week and there's a sick call or someone needs to get away for something, I can be there. So I can pick up the occasional shift just to keep the skills up and to remind myself why I went into this in the first place.
Went into medicine or went into politics?
Well, both. but I mean politics in that,
yeah.
I went in because of the things I saw in emergency and how I knew, policy affected my patients. What
do you plan on doing differently this time around? Obviously, you fought to be returned to Ottawa.
Mm-hmm.
You were there, lost closely. Now you're back in Ottawa. What will you do, or how will you approach your job differently this time around?
I don't know if I will approach it differently. I set some priorities, worked hard towards those, and basically just kept running, going forward on the things that I knew were important to my constituents and the policies that I knew we needed. And I guess now that we've had a start on pharmacare, the big difference is that because that is an established policy now, and we have the ball rolling on that, my main push is going to be working to expand that.
Thank you very much for making the time to be live with us on CBC this morning after a long night. Congratulations again.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and congratulations to all of the winners all across Manitoba. We've been talking live with Doug Eyolfson, the Liberal winner in Winnipeg West. He will be returning, and once again the MP, as we mentioned, he'd been MP from 2016 to 2019. Marty Morantz lost there last night. He said that is the end of his political career. We are hearing from voters here. I'm Marcy Marcusa. CBC's out in our community studio, as I put it. We're at the Salisbury House at Pembina at Stafford, and we're hearing from voters. You've been writing to us this morning And also, we're hearing from some folks that are having coffee and just sitting down. So Perla Socopla wrote in, she said she voted Liberal last night because the provincial Conservatives cut back health care. So that was exactly what she said to us, her comment. Valinda Bennett said, here's how she feels about the last night's result. She said, it was a horrible night. More debt is on the horizon. So Valinda writing in. Colleen Gurney-Alston is saying, I'm so relieved Canada is not following in the footsteps of those south of us. We have Kelly Ham writing in, relieved to see this. Lorna Hearn-McClarty saying, thank goodness, I was so worried. Peter Harvey saying, sad it came at the expense of the NDP. Having said that, I can't believe all the anger still being shared on social media toward the left. So reacting to some of what he was seeing in his own feeds last night. So what a night it was. And really, we're not done yet, because if you're just joining us this morning, Elections Canada has taken a break. They're taking a pause in counting votes, and they will resume at 8:30 this morning. We do have one riding too close to call, even though Conservative Raquel Dancho is ahead by more than 1,500 votes in Kildonan and St. Paul. They have not officially yet called that for her. In Manitoba, there's change this morning. The Liberals are up 2, now sitting at 6 seats in this province. The NDP have lost 2, now sitting at 1 seat. And should Raquel Dancho hold on in Kildonan and St. Paul, and it looks like we will see. We haven't officially made the call, but it looks like the Conservatives will then, with that seat, have 7, which is actually what they went in with. So I believe it is time for our political panel at 7:45 a.m. And we've been together week in and week out since the snap election was called. We've been leaning into all of your insights shared by these veterans of Canadian politics in Manitoba. Dan Vandal is the former, as of today, Liberal MP for St. Boniface St. Vital. Good morning.
Good morning, Marcy.
We also have Erin Selby here with us at Sal's, former NDP MLA for Southdale here in Winnipeg. Hi.
Good morning.
And then Dorothy Dobie, live, former Conservative MP for Winnipeg South and former Parliamentary Secretary. Hi, Dorothy.
Good morning.
So every week you three were with us talking about why you thought your party was the best to run the country, hoping for the greatest results. We now know what we're waking up to. We're waiting to see if the Liberals will win a majority. They have won a minority. Why don't we go here then, Dan? This is your party. Why do you think this happened last night?
Well, last night, first of all, was a great night. We've won at least a minority, possibility of a majority. Our candidate in St. Boniface St. Vital, Ginette Lavac, was elected, and Pierre Poilievre lost his seat. So that counts as a great night. I think Donald Trump really was the elephant in the room. I think he insulted Canada. He threatened us economically, threatened our sovereignty, and all Canadians looked at that as the issue that we have to deal with, and decided that Mark Carney was a much better place, was a much better leader to address the Donald Trump issue. And I think they voted accordingly.
Do you have to turn to Erin and thank her because this came at the expense of the NDP?
Listen, I think the NDP and Jagmeet did a great job over the last 4 years. We did great things for Canada, which is pharmacare, which is dental care, and other programs that are going to help Canadians. And listen, I have a lot of respect for the work the NDP did, and politics is a tough business, but that's the way it happens.
So how unusual is it that both of your leaders, Dorothy and Erin, I mean, this morning, have lost their seats? Jagmeet Singh, Erin, just to go to you next. Erin Selby obviously has said already he's not, he's not going to run again. He's stepping down as leader, rather. What's your thought on last night and how it shook out?
Well, I think that Dan said it, that this was really the Trump factor, so our vote got nervous and went over to the Liberals. But I do have to say I have a lot of former colleagues and former friends who were in the campaign, both as candidates and behind the scenes, and I'm really proud of how hard they worked.
How disappointing is this, and where does the NDP go from here?
I think we have to get together and figure out what the next steps are. I mean, Jagmeet said it last night that we don't stop. We still keep fighting for Canadians. I actually was hoping for a minority government, hoping that we would make the counterbalance so that we could continue bringing forward some really good NDP initiatives and making them happen. Unfortunately, that's not it, but we're not going to stop speaking. We always punch above our weight.
What's your reaction to the losses here in Manitoba? So Leah Gazan in Winnipeg Centre holds on. She's the only Liberal NDP MP now in the province. Let's go up north, actually, for that first. Rebecca Chartrand taking that riding for the Liberals. Nikki Ashton, after 17 years.
That was a shocking one. I mean, we know that she's come close in the past, but I didn't expect that. I knew it was going to be tight, but I did think that Nikki would still come through. I was really confident that Leela Dance would hang on to her seat, and I'm quite disappointed. I'm a big fan of hers, and I wanted to see what she was going to do in Ottawa with a bit more time. Leah Gazan's got a lot of weight on her shoulders, but I know she can handle it. She's going to have to speak for NDPers right across the province.
So Aaron's referring, of course, and the two of us referring to, we talked about Leah Gazan in Winnipeg Centre, but the NDP went down in northern Manitoba, so that's Rebecca Chartrand now. And then the Conservatives actually won out in Elmwood, Transcona, so that's a new MP. Dorothy Doby, what are you feeling after last night? Your leader lost his seat. You did make a small pickup here. What are your thoughts this morning?
Well, I think first of all, we're not going to abandon Pierre. I think he's learned a lot in the last 4 years, and he's just getting started. He's still young, and he's got lots of energy, and we're going to be okay. I want to first of all say, though, I'm very sorry for all those folks who lost in every party at the federal level. It's a very tough thing to do, and I hope all of the people that know them and support them, and those others as well, will be kind to them and will take them into their hearts. Don't cross the street when you see them. Come up and give them a hug and say, you'll be back, because I think it's very, very difficult for folks when they've lost. I just
want to stay there for a second because I like that you said that, because I often say after what does it take to put yourself out there like this? Like, really, all three of you were nodding vigorously when Dorothy said that, right?
Yeah. So I've always said that campaigning for me felt like I was pulling my skin off, going to the door and saying, "Please pour salt on me."
Wow. Okay, Aaron's giving this some thought. What did it feel like? What did it feel like for you? In those years, win or loss.
Well, it's at the beginning. It's tough to knock on doors and to try to convince people that to vote for me or just to help the party or give us money, and it doesn't come to me naturally. But you do get into a rhythm and a zone where you get energy back from people, and then it gets going. It gets easier as the more you do it, the easier it gets.
So much
and
navigating.
it's like many other jobs where if you just keep going, you'll get better.
The thing is that it's 367 days a year.
Yeah.
It's 24/7. And when you stop that kind of activity, it's very difficult for people because it's just like you fall off a cliff.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's interesting, Dorothy. You're saying Pierre Poilievre. I was going to ask you if you think he should stay on as leader. Obviously, you're saying he should come back. Run somewhere else, get a seat, and stay on. Why do you think that the Conservatives didn't do better last night?
People were afraid, and they bought the story that only one man could handle Trump. I think if Trump hadn't been a factor, it would have been a very different story. And that's the way it is. It's a democracy. People look for where they think they're going to get the best return. We'll see how it goes. I'm not necessarily confident there's a lot going to change with Mr. Trump. He will do what he will do, as I've said many times. But in the meantime, we'll just have to get out there and stand up for Canada.
What's your reaction to the pickup that you did make last night? Colin Reynolds in Elmwood,
good
Transcona?
for him. That's amazing. That's really amazing. I'm delighted for that. And it's interesting that we've got 7-7. I'm very sorry. By the way, I hear the young Liberal woman, Chartrand, is a real,
Rebecca Chartrand in the North?
Yeah, real pistol that she's really good, intelligent girl. She's going to do a great job up there. And it was time for a change. It's been represented by the same person for a very, very long time.
And you're apologizing to Aaron because I guess that was for the Leela Dance loss.
Yes,
in Elmwood,
exactly.
Transcona.
But your daughter did very well, and even though it was in our riding, I wish she'd done better.
I did watch Winnipeg West very closely last night, and when she got her first 2 votes, the living room erupted.
And I got to tell you that I know that Marty said he wasn't going to run again, but we sure hope he does because
he's Winnipeg West,
one heck of an MP, just an amazing guy.
So let me ask you all this because we could dig into your parties, what went right, what went wrong, but I want to talk about unity this morning. Because a lot of people last night were saying, we haven't really seen, Canada, just basically put the NDP in that third place position. Across the country, it was really sort of a two-party race sort of emerging, and we're talking about some of the reasons why, an unusual election. Where do we stand this morning? Do we still have the capability to be unified, given what happened last night?
I think we do with Mark Carney as Prime Minister. I think the message was loud and clear. Canada's strong. We have to be unified to address the threats that that the United States and their president pose to Canada. And I don't think we have a choice. I think most Canadians have spoken loud and clear that they want to get behind a strong leader who brings people together, and that's Mark Carney.
Can Carney do that with the Conservatives, Dorothy, especially here in the West and in rural areas? We still are waking up with that blue circle around Winnipeg. What do you think?
I think there's still a lot of votes to be counted, and so we don't have a final number yet. We just don't exactly know where we are. What will it be like going forward? It's going to be difficult to say because we won't have a leader in the House for the time being. But I think people want Canada to stand up for itself, look for new markets, get out there and grow up. Come on, pull up our big boy pants and do what we should have been doing for a long, long time. Treat ourselves like a sovereign nation. Stop being so dependent on the U.S.
Dorothy's right. I mean, obviously, Aaron, we're all watching the numbers come in. We don't know if the Liberals will be in a majority position. What are your thoughts on whether or not what might be best for the country right now?
Well, we definitely will always be speaking up for Canadians, no matter how many voices are in the House. We are going to be doing that. And we saw that when Liberals worked with us in the last little while, we got a lot done. So I think, Canada is the number one priority. Looking out for people is the number one priority. And I think we'll continue to do that.
Although it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the Bloc Québécois and where they're going to line up.
Right.
That's
Quebec
going to
will
be
probably
the
do quite
big
well
wild
in the
card.
next few years.
Because they'll probably hold the balance of power, at least a good part of it.
What will a Liberal government down do for Manitoba specifically, given that some people this morning might be thinking the same as what we've had the last 10 years, so differently moving forward? What do you think those priorities are going to look like for our province?
Well, I think it's going to be focused on creating good jobs for Manitobans. Carney was here a couple of times during the campaign. He was at NFI to talk about zero-emission buses, which is incredibly important to the future of Manitoba and Canada. We've invested in Churchill. We've invested close to $300 million over the last 6 years after the Conservatives essentially did not invest and basically did everything they could to shut it down. So we realize we're an Arctic port. We're an Arctic. We're a port province with an ocean, and with partnerships with the province of Manitoba, we're going to invest up in the Churchill, especially with Rebecca Chartrand, who's a wonderful. She's going to be a wonderful MP.
Well, I certainly hope they take a look at Neaston and Port Nelson, because I really think that that's an opportunity for the Indigenous people up there to build their own economy and to have a second port that is 12 months a year, not just 3 or 4 months in the summer.
That's a longer discussion.
Well, it's a longer discussion, but I do hope your guys will be on side, because I think it's very important to our export possibilities.
Just one word for the last 30 days, everybody, or 30-some days. I don't even know. It's May this week. I don't know what's going on this election, right? One word for, the ups and downs of the month. Like, how are you feeling this morning?
Relieved. I think I feel like many Canadians relieved that we have a mature, competent government willing to work for everybody.
Okay, we allowed you a phrase, so a phrase.
Excited. I think there's so much still to come. We haven't even begun to scratch the surface. Just watch us.
Aaron?
Down but not out.
A good girl.
Thank you, three. We're going to keep you for a bit of a special discussion because someone on the panel has had their last day in politics after a very long time. So we'll talk about Dan Vandal after 8 o'clock on the show. I see a tear in your eye this morning. I get that. All I have is a Sal's napkin for you. I wish I had a proper Kleenex. Thank you, panel. Really thank you for all of your time on CBC this month.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
As mentioned, we have a special send-off for Dan Vandal coming up. Of course, he was a city councillor before he was an MP. Dorothy Dobie's been with us, former Conservative MP for Winnipeg South, former Parliamentary Secretary. Aaron Selby, former NDP MLA for Southdale. Dan Vandal is his first day today as the former Liberal MP for St. Boniface St. Vital. It ends a 30-year career in politics that started here, as I mentioned, at Winnipeg City Hall. So stay tuned. We'll have more on Dan's career and his contributions to community. And again, just to reiterate where Dorothy started, thanks to everyone who ran last night. It's a lot of work to put your name forward, win or lose. Here's more headlines with Heather Walls.
Well, still too close to call. A number of ridings still at play after yesterday's federal election. Among them is Kildone and St. Paul, where Conservative Raquel Dancho is leading Liberal Thomas Nakins by more than 1,000 votes. counting of special ballots has been suspended until 8:30 Central Time this morning. That's when Elections Canada says they will resume. So we'll hear some updates on some of those numbers. And Northern Manitoba, as we've been hearing, is going to see a fresh face in Ottawa. Liberal Rebecca Chartrand winning Churchill, Keewatin, Aski, and as well in Brandon Souris, an MLA, a former MLA, becomes an MP. Grant Jackson wins for the Conservatives. More news at 8:30.
The winner here in Winnipeg South Centre, Ben Carr for the Liberals, has just walked in his Jets jersey. Stay tuned. We're going to hear more from him after 8.
Today on Q with Tom Power.
It's one of the great Canadian comebacks. 10 years ago, Angelique was at the height of her fame, hit records, big shows, but then she had to step back. Angelique will tell you how she recentered herself, found a new sound, and found the right kind of success.
And now I'm singing,
That's coming up on Q, followed by Commotion with Elamine Abdelmahmoud on CBC Radio 1, the CBC Listen app, and everywhere you get your podcasts.
The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current with Matt Galloway.
Well, the election is over, and now the real work begins for the next government. We will bring you everything you need to know about what happened and why, what it means for you and for this country, and what happens next. That's coming up on The Current.
Good morning. I'm Marcia Young at the CBC Broadcasting Centre.
And I'm John Northcott in Yorkminster Park in Toronto St. Paul's, a riding that turned red again in this historic federal election.
This is a special edition of World Report. Mark Carney will be Canada's next Prime Minister, and he could be leading a minority government. There are more than 24 ridings that have not been called yet, but one thing is clear. It has been decades since Canada last looked like this.
No matter where you live, no matter what language you speak, no matter how you voted, I will always do my best to represent everyone who calls Canada home.
And as I said, while we will do our constitutional duty of holding government to account and proposing better alternatives, we will always put Canada first.
It is rare for two parties to control so much of Parliament. The Liberals and Conservatives each have more than 40% of the popular vote. It's also rare for the leaders of one of those parties to lose their seat. Pierre Poilievre was defeated in his Ottawa area riding of Carleton. Jagmeet Singh lost his seat too, and his new Democratic Party is projected to lose official party status.
I've been informed a party leader that I'll be stepping down as party leader as soon as an interim leader can be appointed.
The Green Party right now holds just one seat, Elizabeth May's riding in BC. It is unclear if it will be able to pick up a second in Ontario's Kitchener Centre riding. That race still too close to call. For more now, let's go to Janice McGregor in our Parliamentary Bureau. And Janice, Mark Carney has a difficult job ahead, and it looks as if he will have to do it with a minority government. What kind of challenges will that present?
Marcia, this result is a dramatic consolidation of the next parliament into two-party politics. The Liberals did win the popular vote. That is something they did not accomplish in the last two elections, and that adds to the credibility of Mark Carney's win here. But it is not at all clear that this minority parliament is going to be easy to navigate at a time when a budget and consequential legislation may be required urgently. Unless more ridings flip as the final ballots are counted today, the Liberals are going to need perhaps 5 new Democrat or Green MPs to help them pass anything they want to do. The Bloc is going to hold a swing vote on House committees, requiring constant negotiations there too. In looking ahead to the challenge of dealing with Donald Trump's threats, Carney called for cooperation.
United, we have built one nation in harsh conditions despite a sometimes hostile neighbor. We are supporting our friends and neighbors in the crosshairs of President Trump.
When Justin Trudeau resigned, there was a danger that his successor could have been the shortest serving prime minister in history. With this win, Mark Carney will not be the answer to that trivia question.
Janice, let's talk about Pierre Poilievre's night.
Yeah, for an opposition leader who'd let what had been a commanding lead in public opinion polls slip from his party's grasp and lost his seat in the House of Commons in the process. A resignation wouldn't have been out of the question last night, but instead, Pierre Poilievre declared victory.
We have much to celebrate tonight. We've gained well over 20 seats. We got the highest share of vote our party has received since 1988.
That part of his speech was perhaps an opening bid to keep his job atop a party that appears fraught with serious infighting. If he is going to carry on in the short term, he's going to have to figure out how to do that without being a leading voice in the House of Commons. Another Conservative that did win a seat last night is going to have to step down and eventually let him run again in a by-election.
Thank you, Janice.
You're welcome.
The CBC's Janice McGregor reporting from Ottawa.
Carney campaigned on needing a strong mandate to face U.S. President Donald Trump. He's already laid out parts of his plan to make Canada's economy more resilient. Our senior business correspondent Peter Armstrong is in studio. Peter, Carney, the former Bank of Canada governor, experienced in running G7 economies. What do you expect to see from him as Prime Minister?
You know, you make the interesting point that he campaigned as that experienced, calm, cool hand in a crisis. So in a lot of ways, the hard part's done. He won the election. But now all of the work that lies ahead of him of actually doing the work, of actually implementing the agenda and actually trying to find ways to grow the economy. The one thing we need to see, not just for the trade war with the United States, but for the work of trying to convince all the people that didn't vote for the Liberals that they are in fact going to work for them. The one antidote to both of those problems is finding a way to grow the economy. There are piles of policy options. You and I have talked about some of those during this campaign. He's got to pick some, he's got to prioritize them, and then he's got to do the work to see them through. That, I think, will be a much bigger test than simply winning this election.
Peter, Canadians are still really struggling with affordability. How is Carney planning to provide some relief?
I think you ask one of the most important questions, but also one of the trickiest. The problem with affordability has been there and has been growing for years. And what you can do in the midst of a trade war where tariffs are going to be driving up costs, where uncertainty is going to be driving down employment, is one of those really big, very important questions that is not going to wait for some answer from Parliament. It's going to need work right out of the gates.
Peter Armstrong in Toronto. Thank you, Peter.
You bet.
John, one of the big storylines of this election is how poorly the NDP performed at the polls. The party is currently leading or elected in just 7 seats. Not enough to maintain official party status or for Jagmeet Singh to stay on as leader. David Thurton has more.
Honestly, I got to avoid making eye contact with certain people because then it's going to get too emotional up here. So,
this was a challenging night for Jagmeet Singh, and you can see it in his face. Singh considered the loss of his Burnaby Central seat. Coupled with the party's poor showing, it was impossible for him to stay on.
Tonight, I've been informed our party leader that I'll be stepping down as party leader as soon as an interim leader can be appointed.
Singh thanked his family, and he gave a shout-out to his staff, some of whom will be losing jobs because the party doesn't seem to be on track to maintain party status. The results are a major blow for New Democrats. The last time they performed this badly was back in the 1990s.
Obviously, I'm disappointed that we could not win more seats, but I'm not disappointed in our movement. I'm hopeful for our party. I know that we will always choose hope over fear and optimism over despair and unity over hate.
Like in previous elections, New Democrats now turn their attention to figuring out what went wrong, but this time they are searching for an interim leader to guide a very small NDP caucus. David Thurton, CBC News, Burnaby.
Now, if this remains a minority government, the Bloc Québécois could hold the balance of power. So although it has lost about 10 seats in total, the party is celebrating. Rafi Bouchikanian has more.
Despite loyal Bloc Québécois supporters cheering for leader Yves-François Blanchet, on paper, Monday was not a good night for the Bloc. Many party stalwarts like parliamentary leader Alain Terrien will not be returning to Ottawa. However, even with fewer MPs than they had before the election, the suspense over how the Liberals end up doing is giving them hope. Blanchet says he will be able to push issues that matter to Quebecers to the forefront.
Et nous imposerons incontestablement.
like the province's uniquely francophone nature, which Blanchet says he will impose in Parliament. Then there is protection for supply management in trade negotiations with the U.S., a key issue for dairy farmers, something the Bloc tried to pass legislation on before the election and is promising to do again. Blanchet says he'll work with Ottawa on issues where he sees eye to eye, but says his support should not be taken for granted. Rafi Boudjikanian, CBC News, Montreal.
And recapping the results from Canada's federal election, Mark Carney will be the next Prime Minister. Right now, his Liberals are leading in or projected to win 168 seats. That is minority territory, John.
But in Quebec, Marcia, Newfoundland, Ontario, and British Columbia, there are still more than 24 ridings that are still too close to call. Elections Canada says it plans to resume counting ballots in those ridings in just under 30 minutes from now. Pierre Poilievre lost his home riding of Carleton, but has vowed to keep fighting on behalf of Conservatives. NDP leader Jagmeet Singh says he will resign as his party's leader.
For up-to-the-minute developments, stay tuned right here to CBC Radio or on the CBC Listen app.
Or you can follow along on cbcnews.ca. I'm John Northcott.
And I'm Marcia Young. This is CBC News.
We are now going to be back in government for tomorrow and days, weeks, and hopefully years to come with Mark Carney as Prime Minister of Canada.
That is Kevin Lamoureux. He won last night in his riding. Once again, he's been an MP in Winnipeg North for some 15 years. And he's right. The Liberals did have a win last night. They will form government, a minority government right now. We're not sure if that will change by the end of the day. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to a special post-election edition of CBC of Information Radio, 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. We are live at the Salisbury House at Pembina and Stafford this morning. Well, let's talk about one of the seats that was held last night, Winnipeg South Centre. We are live here, and Ben Carr is live here as well. He held the seat. He campaigned hard to keep his job representing this riding, and he will join us to talk about why he thinks it happened here in Winnipeg. So there was some change, though, in the province last night. To hear more about that and other reaction to last night's election results, Heather Wells joins us now.
Good morning. Yes, 2 Winnipeg area seats changed hands last night as both the Liberals and Conservative parties increased their share of the popular vote in the newly renamed riding of Winnipeg West.
I'm back.
Liberal Doug Eyolfson defeating Conservative Marty Morantz. The Conservatives won a Winnipeg seat that they took from the Liberals. Colin Reynolds defeating, or I should say that they took from the New Democrats. Colin Reynolds defeating Leela Dance in Elmwood Transcona. Now, one Winnipeg riding still too close to call. That's Kildonan St. Paul, where the Conservatives' Raquel Dancho is leading the Liberal there by more than 1,000 votes. We're going to check on some new faces going to Ottawa from rural Manitoba coming up in our next local news at 8:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
Abby Adeyemi is back at Portage Avenue in our studio and has our forecast. It's one of these deceptive days where you look out and see this beautiful sky, Abby. It's sunny, and then you're like, oh, where are my mitts?
It's sunny and it's chilly in the south, while the northern regions remain colder with cloudy skies we're seeing this morning. Though the sunshine today will be warming things up and it's going to keep things comfortable in most of the regions. Winnipeg sits at -5 still under sunny conditions. We're heading to a high of 12 degrees. Similar conditions, Brandon also heading to a high of 12 at -7 at this time. Dauphin at -8, hovering close to -11 later, and Thompson -9 at this point, and will only warm to around -2. Churchill is a cold spot, -17 at this time. Wind chill feels like -25. But Winnipeg, it is sunny and cold outside, -5. Expecting a sunny and mild day, warming up to 12 degrees.
All right. Thanks very much, Abby. Corey Funk, what's going on in the morning commute?
Yes, northbound Osborne, just past Arnold, there's a stop blocking the northbound curb lane, so keep left to get around that. Otherwise, if you see anything else going on, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number, 204-788-3093.
It is right now the time 8:13, and let's begin with a conversation this half hour with Ben Carr, who comes by his love of politics in the riding of Winnipeg South Centre, where we're sitting this morning. Honestly, his father Jim Carr was a Liberal MP until he passed away in 2022, and since then Ben has represented this area. Yesterday, voters re-elected him, and he joins us live. How are you feeling this morning?
A little tired, but very good, uplifted.
Yeah, you walked in, you saw Dan Vandal. The two of you seemed to share a moment. Tell me a little bit about how Liberals overall are responding to this. I don't even know what to call it compared to where you were 6 months ago. I mean, it's an extraordinary result.
It is. It's a remarkable turnaround, and there are a lot of different things, Marcy, that go into a successful campaign, from volunteers across the country to political staff, the candidates, the leadership, those around them. It's very much a team effort, and I think everybody is waking up this morning incredibly proud, but very much alert to the significant degree of work that's ahead of us as a country.
What will you think? What would be the priority, and how do you hope that priority will serve Manitobans?
Well, I think first and foremost, the priority will be for the government to get its feet under itself, obviously to return to Parliament at some stage in the not too distant future. But the number one priority, without a doubt, is dealing with the provocations that we face from the American administration. There are some very significant challenges that are posed as a result of those provocations, and I think that Canadians expect that the government, working in cooperation with all members of Parliament and parties within Parliament, have a job to do on their behalf.
How different was this election campaign for you, Ben Carr, compared to the last one?
Well, I was elected in a by-election. By-elections are very different because you actually have the support of pretty much the entire party behind you, as there isn't focus that is divided between the other 343 ridings. So in this instance, it was quite different. I have been involved in every campaign in Winnipeg South Centre in some way, shape, or form since I was about 5 years old. But this was my first general election as a candidate on the ballot. And it's a very intense thing to go through, a federal election campaign, but we had some remarkable moments, conversations, much to be proud of, and I'm grateful to the people of Winnipeg South Centre for giving me the opportunity to continue representing them in Ottawa.
Who will the Liberals be working with if a majority is informed by the end of the counting today, and they're just going to be resuming at 8:30 Winnipeg time here?
Well, I think we have to wait and see what the result looks like. But I think if we take a step back, Marcy, we have to work with everybody. I think the Prime Minister gave a fantastic speech last night, and the primary message there was about unity, and that this is a moment in which all 343 members of Parliament who get sent to Ottawa on behalf of those they represent have a job to do to keep this country together. Of course, there is going to be disagreement about public policy and how we best move forward in service of Canadians, but there's no question that the degree of expectation that the electorate has on its elected officials, I think, is different than it has been in recent years. So we'll have to take a look at and see what the composition of Parliament looks like at the end of the day, but we're going to have to work with everybody in order to make sure that Canada comes out of this as strong as we need to be.
Well, you're going to return to Ottawa with two more Manitoba Liberals.
Yes.
That changed. So the Liberals this morning with 6 seats, the NDP with 1. They've lost 2. And the Conservatives, as it sits, have 6, but they're leading in Kildonan and St. Paul. That is just one of the ridings where they're still going to be doing a final count with 1 poll to report. Ben Carr, congratulations. Thank you for being with us live this morning. Congratulations on last night.
Thank you so much, Marcy.
That's Ben Carr, who remains the Liberal MP for Winnipeg South Centre. He won his seat last night. Next on the show, let's talk about where there was change in Manitoba last night. If you were hearing some of the results in the news, one of the ridings was in Elmwood Transcona. So there, NDP candidate Leela Dance thanked her team of volunteers and family after losing the seat. Dance was elected in the NDP Winnipeg stronghold there in a by-election last September, but it was by a margin of about 1,000 plus votes, and then that riding was redrawn to include a more rural area, including Dugald. So whether or not that factored into the win for Colin Reynolds, the Conservative candidate, we're going to see, but we know what the result is. She says the party showing in last night's election was, of course, not the result they were hoping for.
Well, obviously they weren't what we were hoping for. We were hoping for victory, but things just didn't go our way today. But that happens, right?
Looking back at your time in this role, what are some of the standouts? What are the things you were proud of?
Wow. You know what? 6 months is not a lot of time. It was really just about learning and speaking to people. I had an opportunity to meet some amazing people, some amazing community groups, social service programming in this riding, and that was really important to me, and it was really interesting. That part I really enjoyed.
Talk about the campaign as well a little bit. It felt like a bit of a unique election. How did you take that style to the trail, and what were some of the things that stood out for you from the people you talked to?
Yeah, so I did a lot of the same things that I did during the by-election. It was just going out and talking to people, door knocking, meeting with as many people as I possibly could. So very similar. Some of the topics changed a little bit with Trump, but still very much about just talking to people and meeting with them. There's been a shift here since in the last few months with the new government down in the States and what that has done to it. It's really changed the narrative here.
What's your message to the next MP coming in who's going to be representing this riding?
Just serve the community, have a chance to listen to the people in this riding. They really have a message, and just give them the time and the grace to be there and be available to them. That was something I really tried to do, was be available to people and have them be able to call me or come to the office and actually meet with me. It's super important that our political representation actually represents the people and are available for the people to talk to.
NDP candidate Leela Dance, who lost the seat last night in Elmwood-Transcona to Conservative Colin Reynolds. CBC's made repeated attempts to speak with Mr. Reynolds, and we've not heard back. We can tell you a voter here that's at the Sal's at Pembina and Stafford voted in Elmwood-Transcona last night, and he did vote Conservative. Larry Kindred shared with us, says he liked Poilievre, he liked his ideas, he's sorry that, quote, my guy lost. He thinks people didn't like how he talked, but to him, he said, I liked his ideas and he talked real. So we'll have to see what Pierre Poilievre will do. If you're just waking up, there's so many results last night that are worth full interviews. Jagmeet Singh is no longer the leader of the NDP. He stepped down last night. He lost his seat. Pierre Poilievre also lost his seat, but he has not stepped down as Conservative leader. Will he run in another seat? Where will he run if that happens? And in the meantime, who's going to lead the Conservatives as the opposition right now? And will the majority, the Liberals win a majority by the end of the day? So we have a lot of outstanding questions this morning here. We're live at Sal's, 8:21 a.m. Well, just before the news, we want to return to something here because, as we mentioned earlier in the show, Dan Vandal is in his first day as a former Liberal MP for St. Boniface St. Vital, the end of a 30-year career in politics. It started in 1995 at Winnipeg City Hall. So we will talk about what that means for him. Our political veterans, former Conservative MP Dorothy Doby and former NDP MLA Aaron Selby, stuck around over the 8 o'clock hour, and the three of us spoke about this. But first, to start off our conversation, we dug into the archives.
Landed a couple of combinations. Leonard gets tagged again.
In the early 80s, Danny Vandal was the #1 middleweight contender in the country. Vandal was a headliner during boxing's heyday in Winnipeg, but when he began to lose a step, he took the hint.
My daughter was born, I guess, 3 months before my last fight, and it was at that point I realized, well, I have to plan for a future for not only myself, but for my daughter.
Today, he's bobbing and weaving in another forum as a Winnipeg City Councillor.
I've caught a few jabs so far, but nothing to stagger me.
Minister Vandal, given that you are cabinet minister in Manitoba, pretty big shoes to fill given Jim Carr, what will you be bringing to cabinet given frustrations in the West began at the Manitoba border?
It's my first foray into cabinet. I have, first of all, I think it's important to note I'm a proud Winnipegger and a proud Manitoban first. I've been in politics for 20 years. I've represented the city, and I want to be a strong voice for the Midwest and for the West at the cabinet table.
So Dan Vandal, as a newly elected city councillor in 1995 and later in 2019 as a newly appointed federal cabinet minister, went deep in the archives for that. What was it like for you to listen to that, Dan Vandal?
That was a little strange. The daughter I referenced in the first quote is now 39 years old, so there's a lot of water that's flown, that's drifted under the bridge. So. It's been fantastic to represent St. Boniface and later federally St. Vital. And it's the greatest privilege in the world is having constituents, your neighbors, people that you know elect you and vote for you and put you in public office. So it's been great.
So Dorothy, because we're sitting with the panel here,
yes.
right? So both of you have been through this before, Dorothy and Aaron. What should Dan be expecting moving forward once politics is behind him? And is there support for that?
Well, sometimes it takes a little while for it to sink in.
Yeah.
So don't expect to feel this way right away, but often it takes five or 6 months, especially people who lose. You step down voluntarily, but you'll still go through some of it. And there's this sense of discombobulation. Where am I? What am I? Who am I? And that's to be expected, and that's for all those folks out there who lost yesterday. It's a tough one for them.
There is actually support out there for that.
There is
right?
support.
You
I was
gather
about to
posts,
say,
kinda?
I'm the former president of the Canadian Association of Former Parliamentarians.
Okay.
We all come together once that stripe has been kind of diluted by being in office. And we all have, it's like being in a war. We all have the similar memories. We're the only people who can talk to you in a way that you know that we understand.
Look at Aaron nodding away.
Yeah,
That's true.
And by the way, we have the same thing happens here in Manitoba, Aaron. I hope you get involved with the Manitoba
MLAs.
Formers. Yeah, there's a wonderful organization here as well.
What was it like for you personally, Aaron, when you left politics?
Well, the thing that I discovered is I'm not as funny as I thought I was, because when I was Minister of Health and around the table, if I made a joke, everybody laughed. And then when I stepped out, people didn't feel as obligated to laugh at me. So be prepared for that.
How emotional is this for you, Dan Vandal? Like, you spent last week, I understand, clearing out your office. What was that like?
It's quite emotional. I mean, there's so many good people I've met over the years, and great people I've worked with, and you really form that camaraderie, especially as a council. Well, I shouldn't say councillor is different because you work across party lines. I mean, I've had great relationships with Jay Eadie, Bill Clement, and other MPs, Jenny Gerbasi, Glenn Murray, and it's a little different from federal, where it's very partisan, especially in the last few years, the advent of social media and Facebook and TikTok and all that stuff, where everyone's playing to get the 30-second clip and put it on social media. So that makes for a more combative politics, but it's difficult. It's mixed feelings, I'd say, because I really love the job. But at the same time, I'm confident I made the right decision.
And you did this for your personal life.
Yeah, I turned 65 April 18th, and that made the 30 years that I've been in public office. It made a lot of sense for me to open the door to another chapter in my life.
Just because, people across Manitoba are listening in Winnipeg, and because you were a city councillor before you held federal office, we thought we'd spend some time with you on this. But do you have a high point or a low point over your years in political life?
That's a good question. I mean, being appointed to cabinet, working closely with Justin Trudeau, cabinet during some of the biggest crises we've faced as a nation. I'm thinking about COVID during a minority situation. It was very. It was fascinating. It was intriguing to sit next to the Minister of Health and the Minister of Justice and find out about the world issues in a political only, where you get to actually really get into the politics of it, where there's nobody else around. I think I've always enjoyed the political only. I think the last 5 years being a cabinet minister probably is the highlight.
Well, what about a time when you thought maybe I'm getting out, this one hurt too much, or a win you thought, something you fought for maybe that didn't go through, or that could be city council, or it could be as an MP?
You know what? Mostly electoral. I ran for mayor in 2004. I came in second, so I was out of it for 2.5 years. That stung a lot. Eventually, I did come back. I was reelected in St. Boniface in 2006. That was a time where I thought, maybe I'll do something else for a while.
Just briefly here, I know we're short on time, but I want to ask you all to respond briefly. What do people perhaps not understand about this life, Dorothy?
I think they don't understand that it's, like I said before, 24/7, 365 days a year. There are no times off. It's intense. It's selfish. It has to be in order to do what you've got to do to look after your people. Your families come second. It's very difficult for them.
Erin?
Yeah, the hours are extreme. I mean, your phone is going off all the time. You're in public, so people know that it's
Could be the middle of the night.
In the middle of the night, it just never stops.
Just last, I guess I said lastly, but this is the final question. Do you have advice for the newly elected politicians today, Dan Vandal, as you get ready to leave this life?
Yeah, try to find balance in your life. Try to take care of yourself personally, emotionally, physically. The job is very important. The job is great, but there's more to it than just the job. I mean, you got to find the life balance. Balance is a key for everything.
What are you going to do now?
Go back to boxing.
Yeah, you're going to go back to boxing?
That door's closed a long time ago. I'm going to enjoy a Winnipeg summer, a Manitoba summer to begin with, and
they're pretty good.
I'll see what happens in September, October.
The love of the Winnipeg summer goes across all party lines. Any last word to Manitobans that you want to say and to Winnipeggers and supporters?
Listen, it's been an absolute privilege working for Manitobans for a long time, 30 years, and I've enjoyed every day of it, and really I thank you thank the citizens of St. Boniface, St. Vital for allowing me to work for them.
Thank you, three.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan Vandal.
Thank you so much.
It's been fun.
Good.
Dan Vandal is the former Liberal MP for St. Boniface, St. Vital, ending a 30-plus year career in politics that started at Winnipeg City Hall. Aaron Selby, former NDP MLA for Southdale and Winnipeg. Dorothy Doby, former Conservative MP for Winnipeg South, former parliamentary secretary. They've been our partisan panel. Big thanks to them for all of their time on CBC. And I want to do some thank yous before the news here. Salisbury House, thank you so much. You've been up early letting us in. Big thanks to Wendy, who was here at the crack of dawn this morning to let us in set up, as well as to Dave Patrician, who's had us here at Sal's at Pembina and Stafford. Huge thanks to our team, Donna Carrero, who's produced the bulk of our election coverage and information radio. Thank you, Donna. Amazing. Thank you to our live team here, Corey Funk on site with me, my partner in crime, as I like to say, Abby Adeyemi and Brad Lillies back in our studio. In addition, last night, our news department was still, some of them still there when I got in this morning. When I got up at 3, the senior producer of, the producer of our current affairs shows, Nellie Gonzalez, had just been emailing me. I think we missed each other as I walked into CBC. So Chidi Akuma, associate producer, Sierra Sanders, associate producer, and Nellie Gonzalez, as I mentioned, producer of current affairs programs. Thank you for all of your hard work on the program this morning and what you did overnight covering the election. The senior producer of audio at CBC Manitoba overall is Leif Larson, and big thanks to Leif as well. So thanks to all of those folks for their work on the show. And thanks to our news department, Megan Ketchison, Alana Cole, and Heather Wells, who we're about to hear from now with your CBC Winnipeg 8:30 News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 8:30, it's sunny, but not a lot of heat coming from that sun. It's -3 right now. We will be cooler than seasonal today, a high of 12. We warm back up to seasonal tomorrow. Mark Carney will be Canada's next Prime Minister, and he could be leading a minority government. More than 24 ridings across the country are still too close to call.
Who's ready to build Canada strong?
The Liberals and Conservatives each getting more than 40% of the popular vote. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre says he intends to stay on as party leader, despite the fact he lost his own seat in Ottawa-Carleton. NDP leader Jagmeet Singh also lost his seat in BC, and the NDP itself is projected to lose official party status. Now, 2 Winnipeg area seats changed hands last night. Liberal Doug Eyolfson defeated Conservative Marty Morantz. The Conservatives win a Winnipeg area seat, with Colin Reynolds defeating NDP incumbent Leela Dance in Elmwood-Transcona. Winnipeg South has retained its perfect record as a bellwether riding. Since this riding was created in 1988, it has only elected MPs from the winning party. Terry Duguid won last night, as did his Liberals, and he says his party will work with others.
We can work across the aisle with the Bloc, with the NDP, even with the Conservatives at times. So I'm confident that we'll find a way to move forward and work for the betterment of Quebecers and Canadians.
Kevin Lamoureux has been decisively re-elected in the federal riding of Winnipeg North. Lamoureux says his victory comes with a sense of excitement and relief.
Excitement in the sense that, 3 months ago, who would have thought the Liberal Party would have been able to have the opportunity to continue governing Canada? And because it's such a pivotal time in Canadian history, and how quickly things have turned around because of Mark Carney.
Lamoureux says expanding Manitoba's trade and improving health care are top of mind for him in this term. It was a bittersweet night for the NDP in Winnipeg Centre.
Please welcome Leah Gazan.
Leah Gazan re-elected and will return to the House of Commons for a third term, holding off Liberal challenger Rahul Walia, who came in second. Gazan says it was a tough night for the New Democrats, suffering losses nationally and provincially.
I'm looking forward to continuing on the fight, to getting resources in our community, and I'm honored that the people of Winnipeg Centre believed in me to send me back to Ottawa.
Gazan says the NDP will have to take time and reflect on how it will rebuild the party. Outside the capital, Grant Jackson is the new Conservative MP in Brandon-Souris.
We're going to have a little fun tonight, and then we're going to get to work tomorrow morning. Thank you so much for your support.
The 28-year-old former PC MLA secured more than 60% of the votes in that riding. He succeeds longtime Tory MP Larry Maguire, who did not seek re-election. Jackson says people in Brandon-Souris are most concerned with two things: the impact of the United States tariffs under President Trump and the rising cost of living.
I would say it was equal among the amount of doors that he came up, as well as people concerned about affordability, the price of groceries, the price of housing. Those two issues would be tied, basically, in my experience at the doors, as the top two issues.
And to northern Manitoba, where a fresh face will represent that area in Ottawa, Liberal Rebecca Chartrand won Churchill-Keewatin-Nook-Aski, defeating the NDP's Nikki Ashton, who had represented that area since 2008. Chartrand says the North wants change.
Because there's almost nearly 80% Indigenous people in this riding, I think our people are more engaged with, federal and provincial politics, and they're understanding what a vote means.
Churchill-Keewatin-Nook-Aski is Manitoba's largest riding by land area. Now, Elections Canada has released the numbers for voter turnout for yesterday's federal election. Despite record-setting numbers at the advanced polls, the overall turnout did not set records. Slightly more than 67% of registered voters cast ballots across the country. That's about the same as in 2019. Well, you can find more news and more results updated as Elections Canada this past 5 minutes has resumed counting some of those votes, some of those special ballots that came in from people voting who are out of the country. So we'll have all the latest results for you coming up through the day here on CBC Radio and, of course, on our website, cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thank you, Heather, for the voter turnout number. Super interesting. And thank you to the news department. I mean, amazing work. Really, thank you.
Thank you.
So we have so much to analyze. And as I say, these post-election shows are always about results. Let's dig in, what happened, try to start to make sense of why it happened. And then moving forward, it's we still have much more to learn and understand about these tight races. We're going to see where the Liberals land at the end of the day. Will they form a majority or not? If they don't, then who are they going to partner with? So many questions and so much still to come. But now we know how this whirlwind snap election turned out. What a morning it's been. Today on Radio Noon, Kelly Saunders from Brandon University is with Marjorie Dowhouse talking about the results last night. Phone lines will be open between 12:30 and 1. That should be a good one. Corey Funk, the commute.
Northbound Osborne, just past Arnold. There's a stop semi-blocking the northbound curb lane. Keep left to get around that. Also, starting tomorrow, southbound Keewatin, right around Logan, entirely closed for a month until May 30th for construction sewer work.
Abby?
It's a sonic climb across the province from the southern region. Winnipeg, Brandon, Dauphin, Gimli, we're seeing that shaker from that frosty stats, aiming for a high of 13 later today with a gentle southern breeze to help warm things up. And it stays cool up north.
All right. Thanks, everyone, for the morning. Thank you for listening, Manitoba. And we hope you tune in again tomorrow for another edition of Information Radio on CBC, the morning show. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Take care, be well. And I'm going to be off the show tomorrow because I'm actually performing at the Comedy Festival tonight. It's a special stand-up thing at the Gas Station Theatre. And so maybe we'll see you there. But take care. Big thanks and congratulations to everyone who put their name forward in this election.